You invented the internet? It was my idea. Rats are delicious.
Thank you, Martha and George.
In the real world, it was invented by three people working together over various years. Two people invented the first packet switch network, which is the basis that the internet is built upon. And then one guy later invented the World Wide Web, which is what made the internet accessible to the average consumer. Enjoy that. I got my degree in computer science. Moving
And
on.
I got my degree in political science. Al Gore made the internet.
We have very different takes. Hello, and welcome to Notes from the Oracle. I'm Connor, and together with Jack, my co-host from Cabin 6, we're going into uncharted waters as we explore the monstrous mythology of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Book 2, The Sea of Monsters. Chapter 7, I Accept Gifts from a Stranger. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it's an inaccurate title. He knows who Hermes is. He's not a complete stranger, but calling him a stranger for the sake of making the title, good title. Not the best, 7 out of 10. That could just be because it's chapter 7, though.
Yeah, I think you way overrated that. I'm not going to front. This is a
You think
5 out of
so?
10 chapter title and not a point more. This chapter has a lot of interesting stuff going on, and I think once again, Rick picked out perhaps one of the least interesting ways to put it.
You know, when you point it out like that, I agree. But at the very least, I feel like this chapter starts to really move us into the meat of this book, which is
Yes.
good. We've been in a bit of a lull for the past couple chapters, and I'm ready for some proper meat. And this doesn't quite get us there, but I like the direction it's taking us.
Yes. No, I totally agree. For context for the listeners, a little peek behind the curtain. It has, in real life, been quite some time since Connor and I have recorded reading the book. Life gets in the way, we're both busy. It happens every now and again. But we
Well,
have recorded other stuff in between the last chapter of this book and some stuff in between. The point is, basically, we recorded the movie. That's what I'm beating around the bush with. We
I was about to
recorded the
say,
movie.
we could call
Uh,
it what it is. We recorded
yeah.
the movie, and oh boy, it was an experience.
So we went from 2 chapters of this book that we really weren't fans of. There was a pause, and then we started doing stuff for a movie that was really, really, really bad that we didn't like, and then there was another pause, and now we're back. So I actually think it's good that there has been some proper time to get away from the grossness and the nastiness. Go into this book with more of a fresh perspective, at least from my view, I had more of a fresh perspective. I shook off a little bit of that gunk, and I actually really enjoyed this chapter. It's long, and there's a lot of shit that happens, and truthfully, it could be 2 totally separate chapters, but the content that's here, actually really good.
Mhm. This chapter finally feels like it is pointing us in the direction of good things to come. It's got some interesting things going on itself. It's not the most exciting chapter. I feel like you can agree or disagree on that front, Jack, but the content within it is very good. It's not trying to be bombastic. There's no action in here. It's just finally letting us have some of those Camp Half-Blood moments that are important to establishing what we're doing for the rest of the novel, why we're doing it for the rest of the novel, and giving our characters some time to be themselves, especially after, again, the chapter where you've got Annabeth and Percy fighting all last chapter. It's really nice to kick this one off with the two of them realigning on their goals and working together and being like, shit, we gotta save Grover. And it's like, yeah, you fucking do. Now we are back on track.
Yes, so I do agree with you. This is not exactly a heart-pounding chapter. I wasn't at the edge of my seat, but what this chapter does very, very well, I feel like throughout the entire chapter, is flesh out the world in ways that are
Mhm.
interesting. It builds off of what the book series has set as being very interesting, and we've talked about this at length, right? The mixing of ancient myth and modern day, the little quirks of camp, and just the passive things that make the world just generally feel more magical and cool. We get a lot of that this time around. And it's not in any ways where I wanna kinda roll my eyes and be like, "That was lazy." It's just little things. Little things that are really neat, that are creative, where I go, "Man, I love Camp Half-Blood." I love
Yeah,
Camp Half-Blood, and I really like the world that Rick is manufacturing. But I
absolutely.
feel as though we are dancing around those details now. We have a lot to get into, so let's jump into the actual chapter itself.
And it starts really strong with the opening line. The way Tantalus saw it, the Stymphalian birds had simply been minding their own business in the woods, and they wouldn't have attacked if Annabeth, Tyson, and I hadn't disturbed them with our bad chariot driving. Which is wonderful recap of last chapter in case you forgot what went on. It As I said, it lumps Annabeth and Tyson and Percy all into one sentence and it says, "Hey, our main trio for this novel, they're back. We're not fighting anymore. We are all in agreement that Tantalus is a dickhead, and we can
Yeah.
just move on from there."
Yeah. No, I Percy even says, "We've got a common enemy now. So whatever weird bullshit was happening, it's behind us. Don't worry about it anymore." And I do like, once again, Percy, ever the righteous man, is like, "This is incredibly unfair. I don't like Tantalus." I do like he said, "I told Tantalus to go chase a donut." Very good insult.
I was gonna call
Uh,
that out too. It was real
yeah,
fun.
of course, that makes things worse. It makes Tantalus more upset. And because of that, Tantalus punishes Percy and Annabeth and Tyson to kitchen patrol. And again, this is one of those little aspects where it could have just been washing dishes, because that alone sucks. But Rick just pushes it a little bit further and says, "How can I make this actually interesting?" And so it's not just scrubbing pots and platters. It's in the underground kitchen. Apparently, they've got an underground kitchen with all the
Sure.
cleaning harpies. And I seem to remember that these are the harpies that eat people.
They sure are.
It is brought up later, that is confirmed. These are the harpies that eat people. And that the harpies are not only the ones doing this, they also wash with lava instead of water, because it gets that extra clean sparkle and kills 99.9% of all germs.
Only 99.9? You mean to tell me that Purell hand sanitizer kills more germs?
I'm shrugging. I cannot refute the science. But
I
Annabeth and Percy are given this just awful test. Once again, point in favor that Camp Half-Blood is exceedingly dangerous. In the mythical sense, they're washing in lava. In the very real sense, they're wearing asbestos gloves and aprons. That's not good.
And I just love that that's followed up with, Tyson didn't mind. He plunged his bare hands right in and started scrubbing, which obviously at this point we've established well that Cyclops are immune to fire, but it just goes to remind you that being fireproof is such a good power. Like,
Mhm.
he could just stick his whole ass hands in lava. There's no upper limit of how hot it can get. Literal molten rock, and he's like, "Oh, that's fine." And later he's literally playing around in it. Like, good for him. That's it.
It's a top 3 magical ability for sure. And
And
here's what I wanna know, alright? And I know it's such a minor thing. What the fuck are these plates and cutlery, like, made of?
dude, I was thinking the same thing because it's like, are they made out of metal? Wouldn't the metal melt? They
Yeah.
certainly can't be made out of glass or like maybe it's all like stoneware, but like it would have to be very high temp stoneware.
Uh-huh.
I I don't know, man. Maybe it's just magic. They got plates from Olympus.
Shit. I'll accept that. You know what? Yeah, sure. They're the magic plates. Why not?
Is there a god of dishes? Oh no, I didn't do enough myth research for this. Hold on.
I was gonna say that's on you, Oracle.
I'll have it ready for next week. I will not be doing research on a dish god.
Actually, wait. Let's play with this for a second. We've
All right.
barely gotten into the fucking chapter. We're already on this stupid tangent. Would it be Dionysus? I know he's the god of wine, but isn't he also the god of like revelry and merriment, which would also include like food, like feasting? Or would that be Demeter?
No, Demeter is more like bounty and harvest. So if you're going for
Mhm.
like revelry and feasts, it totally would be Dionysus. I would be happy to just say that the explanation is that Dionysus is like, the party can't keep going if we don't have appropriate dishware. I
Yeah,
can't use red Solo cups, those would be bad for the environment, so I've enchanted all of the dishware to just be immune to everything.
yeah. Mr. D's just like these fuck ass kids. These demigods keep breaking everything. Stop it. All right, they're indestructible now. They are the most powerful things that we own in this camp. All right, and your job is to eat off of them and clean them in the lava.
I do just love the idea of the gods having to do very mundane things from time to
Right?
time, being like, "You stupid fucking mortals, fine, the plates can't break. Is this what you need from me?"
Yeah, I mean, okay, we'll put a pin in that, of gods doing mundane things, because I agree, that is very, very funny. It's a trope that I thoroughly enjoy and comes up a lot in this book series. We meet a god later who I would say 90% of what he does is exceedingly mundane.
Oh, true, and it genuinely it's my favorite part of the chapter.
Oh, it's
The
so great.
conversation with Hermes is so much fun, but
It's
we're
so
not there
fucking
yet.
fun. Yeah, we've still got a ways to go. Alright, page
Before that
2.
well, hold on, one more thing before we move on to page 2,
We're
because
not
I
even
think
on page 2? You're
it's a
keeping us
great
on page 1?
example of what we were saying earlier with Camp Half-Blood being interesting and this merge of the mythology and regular mundane things. The
Mhm.
fact that they take the dead Stymphalian birds and turn them into country-fried Stymphalian death bird, and that's the feast to celebrate the chariot race, is truly phenomenal, and it just couldn't go unnoticed.
That's true. It is good. Hey, waste not, want not, you know? It's that environmental message.
So true, but now we can move on to page 2.
Alright, turn the page. Percy and Annabeth. Again, they are commiserating, but they're also talking. Percy's legitimately like, "Alright, Annabeth, for real, what the fuck is going on here? It sounds like you know something. Let's just cut the bullshit, spit it out." And so she's noodling on it, and she keeps saying, "Yeah, if he really found it, if we could retrieve it," which is frustrating, but that doesn't last super long because Percy is like, "All right, dude, all right. Whatever it is that Grover found, it's the only thing that can save camp, the only thing in the world that could help us. What is it specifically? No more riddles. Just fucking tell me, all right?" And this absolute fucking rat of a woman goes, "I'll give you a hint." Stop. We already know you're smart, Annabeth. You're smarter than Percy. He knows that too. All right? Just tell him.
I called the
She
same
wants
thing out. He's like, "Dude, just fucking tell me." And she's like, "Tee here's a riddle."
it's legitimately she's that fucking student where you're like, "Hey, can I get your homework?" And she says, "Well, no, but I can kind of walk you through how to do it on your own." It's like, that is not what I want, nor is that what I need. Class starts in 10 minutes and I haven't done it. Show me your answers. She's like, "But you won't learn that way. You need to critically think."
Thankfully, she eventually is like, "Fine, it's a fleece. You get a fleece. And if that ram happens to have golden wool," and Percy's like, "Oh, the golden fleece. You're not serious, are you?" And Annabeth at this point is like, Of course I'm serious. When am I not serious?"
Yeah, I do like the thing that finally broke her to just telling him is Percy just started being overtly sarcastic. She says, "What do you get when you skin a ram?" And he Percy just goes, "Messy." Great answer.
He was correct, objectively correct.
Yeah, he's not wrong, but he's not the most right. And that's what Annabeth cares about.
That is true. So she has to prove that she can be the most right. And from there, she starts explaining, "Percy, you remember the Grey sisters? How they mentioned Jason? 3,000 years ago, they told him how to find the Golden Fleece. Now things are starting to click." And she's like, "You do know the story of Jason and the Argonauts. And if you at home don't, we're going to be getting to that one in a later chapter. But I promise we will be getting to it in this book." Percy, of course, just goes, "That old movie with the clay skeletons?" Which is true. That
Yeah.
means he probably has some working understanding of it. Like, I'm not gonna say that that movie's the most mythologically accurate, but, like, that's beside the point. He has an understanding.
I'm just surprised that he knows about that movie. Again, I know that this book came out like 20 some years ago, whatever. But at the same time, I don't know, Percy's a fucking kid. I didn't strike him as a fan of the cinema and cinematic history. How the fuck does he know about the 1950, 1960 claymation Greek epic movie Jason and the Argonaut.
Pause. We know exactly how. Remember, in book one, Sally knew exactly how to dodge out of the way of the Minotaur. This woman has done her research, and she said, how do I inconspicuously educate my son on Greek mythology? We're gonna have to watch this shitty old movie, and I'm gonna pretend I really like it. So Percy
Uh-huh.
absolutely had a movie night with like Sally and Gabe. Gabe is there like, what is this fuck ass movie? Percy's there like, Mom, why are we watching this? And she's like, shh, I love this movie. Please pay attention and remember every detail. It's very important to me.
That's true, Connor. Thank you for reminding me. I accept that now.
Either that or, Percy just has bad taste in movies and too much time on the internet.
What is your problem with this movie, man?
I've never seen it.
So why are you being so aggressive towards it?
I don't know, because Percy said that he thought it was some. I don't know, man. I just don't like claymation. I'll put it out there. You know what? I was trying to beat around the bush. I think claymation is weird.
We gotta unpack that at some point, Connor. I think there's something deeper there.
When we're not gonna unpack it right now because we
Literally
have
right
more
now.
important things to talk about. Specifically, we've got a myth to unpack here because Annabeth, as she goes, "Oh my gods, Percy, you are so hopeless. Just listen. The real story of the fleece. There were these two children of Zeus, Cadmus and Europa, okay? They were about to get offered up as human sacrifices when they prayed to Zeus to save them. So Zeus sent this magical flying ram with golden wool, which picked them up in Greece and carried them all the way to Colchis in Asia Minor. Well, actually, it carried Cadmus. Europa fell off and died along the way, but that's not important. I love that Annabeth tells this myth the way I tell myths sometimes.
I made the exact note. I made that exact note. I was like, "Dog, this is us," including Percy's response. Annabeth goes, "Yeah, she died along the way, but that's not important." And Percy says, "It was probably important to her."
I drew a big bold arrow next to that line of like, you gotta read this, Connor. This is the funniest part. Now, here's the funny thing. I want to draw everyone's attention to Annabeth's line that started all of that. The real story of the fleece, colon. The definitive, definitely correct, no mistakes, real story of the fleece.
Yeah,
All right, now that I've put that pin in there, we can move on.
okay. How innocuous.
Uh-huh. Stick around to the myth section. I have thoughts.
I'm sure you do.
But Annabeth does get around to the more important part of her point, which is that when Cadmus got to Colchis, he sacrificed the golden ram to the gods and hung the fleece in a tree in the middle of the kingdom. The fleece brought prosperity to the land, animals stopped getting sick, plants grew better, farmers had bumper crops, and plagues never visited. It can revitalize any land. So, Percy accurately realizes it could cure Thalia's tree, and Annabeth nods. So now we've got it. It
Yep,
took 7 chapters, but we have our definitive quest item that we are going to be searching for in this book.
correct. I do like how it's Fleece Ex Machina. It's literally perfect. It is exactly what they need, and it is odd that Grover just so happened to find it the exact moment that it was needed most. And there's some rationalization here of, well, he was searching for Pan, and clearly both Pan and the Fleece would have very strong nature magic energy. So I guess that's kind of what they're going off of. But Annabeth, being exceedingly skeptical, and I think fairly so, is saying, even if that's the case, nobody has found it. It's like the Holy Grail. There have been
Mhm.
so many people, and this is implied, it is not said. There are people far better than Grover that have looked specifically for this thing and not found it.
Yeah, I mean, let's reiterate that every single satyr who has ever gone to be a seeker for Pan has died. Every single one.
Yeah.
So it's fair to assume that a fair number of them probably got caught in this same trap that Grover did and died.
So I do like that the book takes a beat to say, listen, this is all pretty fucking convenient and very, very fishy. And that is going to be something that I hope they keep bringing up, not necessarily belaboring, but bringing up throughout the book, is this sense of almost paranoia. Like,
Mhm.
do they have a direction? Yes. Do we later find that they have coordinates, probably exact coordinates? Yeah, but they have no idea if it's predicated on a lie. And that is because of what they experienced in the last book, where they didn't realize everything was predicated on a lie. It was actually predicated on several. So they're really looking over both shoulders and are unsure if even the most base information can be trusted.
I agree, man. I think this is a really interesting direction to take this one, especially because just looking at where we are in the novel and everything that's happened so far, it's been very easy to see that it's followed a lot of the same beats from book one. It feels like Rick said, okay, that first one was real successful. I want to change this just ever so slightly. Because not every single novel from here on out is going to rely on the same formula of go on a quest, get an important item, quest over, save the day. So having this one follow that very same formula, we need to take the time to have some deviation, right? We're going to get it
Mhm.
at the end of the chapter when we determine how we're going on this quest. But
Yeah.
even right now, just the idea that they're more skeptical after last time and thinking about, is this a trap? Are we getting fucked over here? It's good. I like it. It keeps it a little bit fresh. And keep
Yeah.
that in mind, Jack, for the rest of the novel. Just keep that in your thinking spot.
I absolutely will. There are several things that I'm keeping in my thinking spot. It's getting crowded in there, Connor.
I know, that's true. We're gonna have to start God, we're gonna have to start recording all of our thoughts somewhere so that we don't forget anything.
That's so true, man. But
But
they talk about, "Hey, this seems kinda crazy and a little weird in a way that might be exceedingly dangerous and deadly." And Percy basically he just asked the question, "So, are you gonna help me save Grover or not? This is what we've got, and if there's even a
mhm,
semblance of a chance that this could be successful, we have to take that for several reasons. Mainly because Grover needs our help, but a very close secondary reason, we gotta save Camp Half-Blood."
mhm.
And Annabeth looks over at Tyson, who is totally not paying attention anymore. I'm sure he probably tried to stick with it and just realized this is way over my head. And he's starting to play with some cups and spoons in the lava like they're boats. He's just having a grand old time.
Good for him.
And Annabeth, under her breath, says, "Listen, Percy, we're gonna have to fight a Cyclops. Polyphemus, the worst of the Cyclopes. And there's only one place his island could be. And then we get title drop, The Sea of Monsters.
Dun dun dun.
Bum, 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 whoa! To which Percy asked a very good follow-up question. He's so good at follow-up questions. I
He
know we
really
mentioned that,
is.
but really, he's great at it. He says, "Where's that?" And she fucking Annabeth, I love her, but sometimes it's like, "Bitch, you know exactly what he means. Don't give him the technically right answer. Give him the answer that will make sense to him." And so she stares at him like Percy's playing dumb. He's not playing dumb, he is dumb, for what it's worth. And in this situation, I don't think he is being dumb. Again, valid question that he's asking. She says, "The Sea of Monsters, the same sea Odysseus sailed through, and Jason, Ananias, and all the others?" To which Percy gives a correct answer. "You mean the Mediterranean?" So what's your game, Annabeth? He just told you, yes, it would be the Mediterranean. And she says, "No." "Well, yes, dot, 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 but no." And Percy said exactly what I was thinking. Another straight answer, period. Thanks, period.
I do find this particular line interesting because Annabeth will follow up that, look, Percy, the Sea of Monsters is the sea all heroes sail through on their adventures. It used to be in the Mediterranean, but it shifts like everything else as the west center of power shifts. So we're going to learn that it is moved currently to somewhere off the coast of Florida, the Bermuda Triangle. What's interesting, though, is that in Heroes of Olympus, when they inevitably have to sail to Greece over to Europe, the Mediterranean will be one of the most dangerous places they sail through. Period, full stop. They are attacked by monsters literally like every single day, even to some extent every hour. They're constantly on guard duty. So, does the Sea of Monsters ever actually move? Or does it just get bigger? Like, does it leave remnants? Because we're even
Mm,
told that the monsters are more active, more ancient, and more dangerous in the Mediterranean itself. So, are there two seas of monsters now? These are the real questions. Someone ask Rick.
No, it's all very fair, but we don't have to worry about that for another 10 years in real life, Connor.
That's so true.
Uh,
I I suppose I was only curious because we've also recently finished up a D&D campaign inspired by Jujutsu Kaisen, and it
mhm.
almost makes me wonder if humanity manifests monsters similar to the way that they manifest curses in
Mm,
JJK,
mhm.
and that's why the Sea of Monsters seemingly shifts, but leaves these remnants of just like the cultural knowledge of these things causes them to congregate in greater and greater capacities over time.
I like that take, that's very interesting. It's almost like these mythological scars. Like, you can pick up Mount Olympus and move, but that's a good thing. But when it comes to the fucking cesspit of monsterdom, like, that's gonna
Mhm.
stick around and build.
Exactly. Once they build a layer, they're set in there, and so then you just
Yeah.
get, like, more and more. That's it. It was just even though it was such a small little thing, it caused a few things in my brain to start clicking and whirring, and
Mhm.
I just couldn't let it go unsaid. But
No, that's a phenomenal point. For what it's worth, bringing it back to what we do know as a fact, at least.
mhm,
This is another very clever play on Rick's part of what would the Western American version of the ancient Mediterranean be? Obviously, the Bermuda Triangle, where all the weird shit
absolutely.
happens, where all the
Abso
folklore is.
No, it was just the perfect answer. Obviously, we get a little bit of recap between Annabeth being like, "It's the sea all heroes go on." She refreshes our memory on some of the other things that have shifted as the gods have moved from Mount Olympus in Greece to the Empire State Building. And Percy finally guesses, he goes, "The Bermuda Triangle?" And Annabeth is like, "Exactly." Percy kind of, they let that sink in. And he's finally like, "You know what? I'm the son of the sea god. How bad can
Yeah.
it be?" Quite literally, he says, "How hard can it be?" Which, Percy, I love you, and you've been asking great questions this whole time, so I'm gonna cut you this little bit of slack. Dude, when has that ever been a good fucking question? Please never ask how hard can it be again. You are only gonna get yourself hurt.
Yeah, no, that's a direct omen. He basically just damned himself and everybody that he's around to something horrible is gonna happen.
Mhm.
But for what it's worth, he's right. He is
He is.
probably the best person alive to handle this.
Specifically true. I really hope that they choose him for the quest then that they now need to go get approval for. I'm sure no one would make the bad choice of not doing that.
Well, see, there's a little bit of a snag there, Connor. It's gotta get approved first. They gotta plead their case, and double unfortunately, the person that would approve that quest is Tantalus, and
Yep.
he will absolutely say no. And Percy does he's like, "I'm throwing a Hail Mary." He says, "Not if we tell him we need this quest tonight at the campfire in front of everybody. The whole camp will hear. They'll pressure him. He won't be able to refuse." Which, okay, I get it. But also, that is not even remotely necessarily true. He's the camp director. He can do whatever the fuck he wants. He also doesn't give a flying fuck what any of these stupid children think. He hates you guys.
While I specifically agree with everything you just said, I do think the idea that there are a lot of campers here who are year round and even more who just come here for the summer, where this is the one place that they feel normal. I think he's on the right track with going, these kids will not let him get away with this. Like, these kids will go, no, this is our home and we have to do something.
Yeah, I get that. I would feel more comfortable with that if we saw more of that in the prior chapters, like we had talked about. We've got a bunch of kids that are like, this kind of sucks, but whatever, I guess.
Tantalus is a cool activities director. He's gonna
Yeah,
let us do murder and racing.
that's exactly right. Yeah. So, I don't know. Again, I don't think it's a bad plan. It's just Percy being exceedingly optimistic for something where it's like, that is absolutely not a guarantee. I don't know why you'd think that.
You know, I don't actually disagree with you, but it is also a Percy plan and not an Annabeth plan. And there's a reason that we're not over here going, Poseidon always has a plan. No, he doesn't. Poseidon's plan is usually, shit, fuck, what am I doing?
Drown them. Just drown them.
Drown him.
That's true. But we're going to skip ahead now.
Indeed.
They keep cleaning more of those plates. Time skip. Whoa, now we're at the campfire. And campfire's cool. Campfire's really cool, Connor. It didn't need to be cool, but Rick adds one little piece of set dressing that, one, makes this a really cool set piece for the confrontation that's gonna happen, the
Mhm.
verbal confrontation that's gonna happen. But also, again, just adds another dynamic of what Camp Half-Blood is that is so fucking fun.
Yeah.
And what that is that the fire is magical. Of course it is. Of course it would be.
Why
But
not?
it's like a mood fire. And so Percy is explaining that the Apollo cabin is leading the sing-along, and they're really trying to get everybody's spirits up. But it's not going super well. The bird attack kinda put a damper on everybody's spirits, who would have thought? And so everybody's just sitting around in this semicircle of the stone steps in this, like, amphitheater, and they're singing half-heartedly and watching the bonfire, and the Apollo guys are strumming on their guitars and picking on their lyres, and they've got their classic standard camp songs,
I'm so
"Down by
glad.
the
I was gonna be
Aegean."
so remiss if you skipped over these. I was like, "We have to go over these."
Yeah, so it's "Down by the Aegean," "I am my own great-great-great-great-grandpa," and "This land is Minos's land," or Minos's land.
So good. I don't know. I just think those are really fun.
Now, Connor, I only understand the "this land is your land, this land is my land" joke with Minos's land. Can you explain the other ones? Because I literally do not understand what they are referencing. I never went to a camp. I never went to a, overnight camp. I never did, like, camp songs.
So here's the funny thing, Jack. I don't get the reference at all. Just think that the concepts are genuinely fun. Now, Down by the Aegean, I have absolutely heard like a song title that is similar to that. Like if I think about like back to my Boy Scout days or my Cub Scout days actually. But the problem is I remember this version better. So I couldn't tell you what the original is. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know Down by the Aegean." And I am my own great 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 grandpa. No idea if that's based on anything real. I just genuinely find it really funny that demigods are like, "Yeah, our fucking family lines are so messed up. Our family tree is a family bush,
Yeah,
and we just all have to be okay with that as 12-year-olds."
gotcha. Fair.
But as Jack was telling us, to some extent, the fire is controlled by the mood of the crowd. And Percy mentions that on a good night, he had seen it 20 feet high and bright purple. So hot that the entire front row's marshmallows burst into flames. And that tonight, the flames were the color of lint. So, Jack, I couldn't just let this rest. And because I know that fires genuinely do change color as
Mhm.
you increase their temperature and mess with other factors. Well, it turns out it's not actually the temperature that affects their color. It's instead the oxygen supply which affects the temperature, and it is the oxygen like burning that creates the various different colors. So bright purple would accurately be a very hot flame as there's a lot of oxygen which produces more ultraviolet radiation, more ultraviolet light. And so that's why fires start to turn blue and purple as they get very hot. Interestingly, there isn't really a gray at all. So the idea that the flames were the color of lint is less accurate. But if you reduce the oxygen to a very low point, the fire would start to have less of a burning flame and more of a smolder to it, which would produce extra smoke, which would give it a gray color. So Rick gets a pass on this one. I know he's a writer guy, but he gets an A+ for his science this chapter.
Wow. Impressive. And here I thought it was just magic, and I was happy with that answer, and then I kept going. I just kept reading.
You were probably right to think that. I also did find it kind of potentially interesting that the campers, perhaps like the energy of godly campers, produces oxygen or other like flammable material and like that it materializes it in some way, like the idea that magic is combustible and that when they're in a better mood, they produce more magic, perhaps. I'm
Mhm.
overthinking it, I know, but that's what we're all here for.
That's true. That is true. Conspiracy helmet is strapped onto your head, 5 layers of duct
Absolutely.
tape.
We're talking about the Bermuda Triangle today. We gotta keep that conspiracy
That's
helmet
true.
strapped on.
That is true. But something we don't have to conspire about. Dionysus is not happy. And I like
Yeah.
this little detail. It's just a small little, like, 1 or 2 sentences where Percy says Mr. D did not stick around. He got up through one of the songs, he muttered something about how even Pinochle with Chiron had been more exciting than this. He gave Tantalus a distasteful look and then headed back towards the big house. And the reason I like that, and it's very basic, very straightforward, that even though Mr. D is pissed that he's here, he loves a good celebration, and the mood fucking sucks right now.
Yeah. You know you fucked up when the god of revelry goes to bed early. He's
Yeah.
like, "Damn, I'm really gonna cash it in," and they're like, Wait, is the world ending?" Like,
Yeah.
that is a
Yep.
bad fucking sign.
Very bad. The worst, actually.
And beautiful contrast. The last song finishes, and Tantalus says, "Well, that was lovely." It's like, ah, so disingenuous. What an asshat.
Oh, it absolutely is genuine, though. It's he relishes in their suffering, in their sorrow. This is lovely for him.
You know, I didn't put that together, but you're right. He probably did genuinely enjoy their just abysmal lack of any joy.
Mhm. It means he's doing his job exceedingly well. And he's gonna celebrate with a toasted marshmallow on a stick. He tries
He's
to pluck
gonna
it off
try.
real casual. He's just willing it that this will work. But before he can touch it, I really like this. Tantalus made a wild grab as the marshmallow flew off the stick, and the marshmallow committed suicide, diving into the flames.
Dude, I just wrote, Jesus, what the fuck, Rick?
I can I can imagine it perfectly though. It slips off the stick, it's just, like, lingering at the edge, it's looking back and forth, and it's just like, "Remember me!" It just fucking it couldn't take it anymore.
Engulfed. I was so disappointed. For context, Jack, I literally just last night watched the first 2 episodes of the new season of
Mhm.
Percy Jackson, and they didn't do any of these food jokes, and it makes me so mad.
Really? Wow,
They
I
did
refuse to
1.
watch the show because I'm worried that I'm gonna mix it up with what we're reading, and I
That's
don't wanna do
probably a
that.
good idea. They did 1. It was okay. It was a little gag where he stuck a straw in a glass of water and just tried to drink and clearly was sucking on the straw very hard and nothing was coming up. And it was okay, but, like, come on, man, the whole point of doing Tantalus is to do all of these dumb jokes.
Yeah,
Just
he's a
throw,
little
like, 1 or
cartoon
2 more
character.
in there. Yeah.
Mhm.
Either way, as Tantalus is finally like, "Whatever, you guys are done. I got to relish in your lack of joy. We have some announcements." Percy interrupts him. Tantalus goes, "Oh, our kitchen boy has something to say." And this is another one of those moments where it's just like, I love Percy. He says, "I wasn't going to let anyone embarrass me into silence." He stands up and he goes, "We have an idea to save the camp." And I love this because it goes exactly back to what I was saying earlier. Dead silence. Everyone's interest is piqued. And as you were pointing out earlier, the campfire suddenly plays a really big role for this set
Mhm.
piece, and it's really cool. Percy says, "I knew I'd gotten everyone's attention because the campfire flared bright yellow." Like, the rest of it is also good, but that moment alone is like, yes, that
Mhm.
is cool. That is interesting.
Yeah. It is a very neat, not very subtle indicator of how Percy and Annabeth is playing the crowd, something that you skipped over. Percy is gonna make a fool out of himself no matter what, but I do like he points out, "Thank the gods that Annabeth stood with me."
Mhm.
So they are now properly back in solidarity. Again, any lingering argument, whatever nonsense they were going through, at least for right now, it's done, quashed. Don't worry about it. They are standing side by side, and they plead their case. And Percy did the hardest part, which was broaching the topic,
Mhm.
and he relinquishes the reins to Annabeth to let her do the smart person thing of actually giving the facts and persuading people as to why this might work. And that means so much more coming from Annabeth than it ever could from Percy. Because
Yeah.
Percy's a dumbass, and everybody knows that. He's an idealistic dumbass, but, you know, a dumbass nonetheless. Annabeth actually knows what the fuck she's talking about most of the time. And she
And
would
it's
not be standing up in front of everybody and making claims if she didn't believe them wholeheartedly.
yeah, and I was gonna say, it's really cool to see this dynamic between the two of them continuing to play out, where they know where the other's strengths lie. Percy gets everyone's attention as like the Golden Fleece. That's what we need to find, and we know where it is. And then he turns to Annabeth to allow her to do, as you said, the smart person part. She's got that rapport at Camp Half Blood. And the two of them, they get people's attention. This works. She concludes, the fleece can save the camp. I'm sure of it. And Tantalus, of course, being the just absolute moron that he is. Not moron. He's not a moron. He just actively wants to cause problems. Goes,
Yeah.
nonsense. We don't need saving. It's just like, you would think that. Of course you would.
Yep.
And he follows it up with the Sea of Monsters. That's hardly an exact location. And of course, this is just leading perfectly into Percy going, actually, we do. We have sailing coordinates.
Yeah. Well, I like this back and forth. This is fun. He's like, how would you know where to go? You don't have an exact location." Percy says, "Yeah, we do." And then Annabeth leans towards Percy. She's like, "You do? What do you mean you do?"
Yeah.
And then Percy nods and is like, "Yeah, I've been thinking about what the Grey sisters said in the taxi, which made me very happy, Connor, because they said
Mm-hmm.
30, 31, 75, 12, and it just seemed like nonsense. I had guessed that those were coordinates.
You sure did.
And once again, I have outsmarted this middle grade fiction because I was 100% correct. They are coordinates. They're sailing
Woo!
coordinates.
What are you, 2 for 2 so far this book?
Dude, these 12-year-olds are not ready for my intellect.
You are destroying them.
I
No,
got it. It's
I
easiest I've ever it's so easy, man.
I also love though that Percy's like, I just I knew it. I learned about them in social studies. And Annabeth's like, I yeah. It says even Annabeth looked impressed. 30 degrees, 31 minutes north, 75 degrees, 12 minutes west. He's right. They're coordinates. That'd be somewhere off the coast of Florida, the Sea of Monsters. We need a quest. I just love whenever Percy's like, my favorite terrain, water.
Water. The
You guys
sea.
wouldn't believe this. I'm the son of Poseidon.
Yep. Literally, that's his hood.
And
And it's out of control now. Tantalus is saying, "Well, hold on, wait a minute." He's putting his hands up, and the campers starting to take up their chant. "We need a quest. We need a quest." And the flames are rising higher, and Tantalus is saying, "Oh, it isn't necessary." And then in all capital letters, "We need a quest. We need a quest." And Tantalus shouts, "Fine!" His eyes are blazing with anger. "You brats want me to assign a quest?" To which everybody cheers, "Yes!"
yes,
And he says, "Okay, I'm going to authorize a champion to undertake this perilous journey to retrieve the Golden Fleece and bring it back to camp or die trying." And Percy's getting excited. He said, "I'm not going to let Tantalus scare me. This is what I needed to do. I was going to save Grover and the camp. Nothing would stop me." And Tantalus, playing with the proverbial bonbon of this
Mhm.
situation, says, "I will allow our champion to consult the oracle and choose 2 companions for the journey. And I think the choice of champion is obvious." Then Tantalus looked at Annabeth and Percy as if he wanted to flay them alive. "The champion should be one who has earned the camp's respect, who has proven resourceful in chariot races and courageous in the defense of the camp. You shall lead this quest, Clarice." What a twist!
What a twist indeed. What if we pick not the sea guy? That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
this made me not like Tantalus, but find him far more compelling. He's not
Yeah.
just a malicious little buffoon. He's actually a very smart and conniving malicious person when he wants to be.
Mhm.
That whole, "Yeah, I'll give you what you want. This is what you want, right? A quest? I'll give you a quest. Here's your quest. Ooh, ooh, is that a beggar who's also a chooser? Ooh, sorry, not allowed. I did what you wanted. I did exactly what you asked."
He picks the perfect controversial person too. It's described here as the fire flickered 1,000 different colors. So we can already see all of the different campers have very different thoughts. But
Mhm.
Tantalus clearly knows that the Ares cabin is not going to let this one go quietly the
Yeah,
moment Clarice's name comes out of his mouth. They start stomping and cheering, Clarice, Clarice. And she's suddenly like, yes, I accept the quest. And all hell has broken loose. You've
yep,
properly divided the camp, you've
mhm.
caused chaos, and no one is getting what they want. Not even Clarice, it seems like.
Yeah. Percy says, "Wait, no, Grover's my friend. The dream came to me." And one of the Ares campers says, "Sit down. You had your chance last summer." You know, Connor, this made me think of D and Demigods.
I figured it would.
And there was this kind of running bit that we had with the group where all of us kind of hated Percy because we're like, he's a fucking glory hound. He gets all the quests, all of them. What do we get stuck with? Wheel snakes? Are you kidding me? And another person says, yeah, he just wants the spotlight again. They're wrong, but I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
It's very funny. Well, especially because if you think about it from their perspective of like, we haven't had a quest in years. The last quest was given to the traitor who tried to destroy everything and is
Yeah.
actively trying to unleash Kronos.
Yeah.
Then the next quest was given to the new guy who showed up a week ago,
Yep.
got claimed by one of the big three, and just happens to have lucked his way into success at every turn. So finally, they're like, Clarice, a year round camper. For the love of God, please let someone who deserves a quest go on it. But I can't help but feel like there's got to be some people in there who are like, but sea guy,
He's quite
but water.
literally he's quite literally the son of Poseidon. Yeah, and I mean, that's exactly what the Athena campers are fucking shouting
Mm-hmm.
about. Annabeth is protesting. The Athena campers join in because they're like, "That is fucking stupid," and we also can assume, just on sheer principle, that Clarice is just not going to do the smart thing and say, "Okay, Percy and Annabeth, you're coming with me." She's gonna choose some of her fucking cronies, her loyalists, as opposed to people that are actually beneficial to this quest,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a war. It's a full-on s'more war. People are shouting, people are throwing shit, and Tantalus silences everybody. He says, "Silence, you brats!" And everybody stops. And Percy, I like he even notes, his tone stunned even me. And we're going to get a little story from Tantalus, and it reminds us of a couple of things. Tantalus was a king.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just some weird, kooky, nobody pushover. This is a commander of a kingdom, of armies, of men. And he says, "Sit down, and I will tell you a ghost story." And everybody is just I can imagine everybody just, like, froze in place. Some people are finishing the follow through of their throw. Other people are starting to run over. A couple of people are in headlocks, and then everybody slowly lets go of each other, puts down their s'mores, and sits down quietly, fingers knit, hands in laps, and wait patiently for this ghost story. And Percy notes that the evil aura radiating from Tantalus was as strong as any monster that he'd ever faced. And that's saying something.
mm-hmm.
He is emanating a presence. And I am going to just say verbatim this little ghost story because I think he tells it in a very fun way and is
Yeah.
important. Is important. Once upon a time, there was a mortal king who was beloved of the gods. And Tantalus puts a hand on his chest. Percy intuits, I feel as though he's talking about himself. Tantalus goes on, this king was even allowed to feast on Mount Olympus. But when he tried to take some ambrosia nectar back to Earth to figure out the recipe, just one little doggy bag, mind you, the gods punished him. They banned him from their halls forever. His own people mocked him. His children scolded him. And oh, yes, campers, he had horrible children. Children just like you. And he's pointing his long, crooked finger at several people, including Percy. Do you know what he did to his ungrateful children? Tantalus asked softly. Do you know how he paid back the gods for their cruel punishment? Well, he invited the Olympians to a feast at his palace, just to show there were no hard feelings. No one noticed that his children were missing. And when he served the gods dinner, my dear campers, can you guess what was in the stew? And no one dared answer. It is fucking silent. The firelight glowed a dark blue, reflecting evilly on Tantalus's crooked face. Oh, the gods punished him in the afterlife. They did indeed. But he'd had his moment of satisfaction, hadn't he? His children never again spoke back to him or questioned his authority. And do you know what? Rumor has it that the king's spirit now dwells at this very camp, waiting for a chance to take revenge on ungrateful, rebellious children. And so, are there any more complaints before we send Clarice off on her quest? And then the next line, silence, period.
Rick playing around with that formatting again, really driving
Yep.
it home.
Yeah. That was good, dude.
It was really
I
good.
love
Well,
that entire section.
and I feel like you haven't even gotten to the best part yet, which is Tantalus then nods at Clarice and goes, "The Oracle, my dear. Go on." And as she shifts uncomfortably, Percy notices that it's like she didn't even want the glory at the price of
Mhm.
being Tantalus's pet. She goes, "Sir," and he just says, "Go." The whole thing is immaculate. What a
Yeah.
way to turn Tantalus's backstory into a really interesting moment in the story that is pretty mythologically accurate too. I mean,
Mhm.
feel free to go back and check out our myth section on Tantalus in episode 5 or chapter 5 of this book. And this is pretty freaking close to what it really was. I mean,
Yeah.
this whole section, I just like did an outline. I drew a whole big box around it with my
Mhm.
highlighter. I was
Yep,
like,
that's what I
this
did.
shit rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh
and
man.
again, forgive me for doing that entire bit verbatim, but 1, it's a good reminder, and 2, it really, really does contextualize who the fuck this guy is.
Yeah.
And she's right, he's a guy, he's just a man, he was a mortal, right? But he is a monster.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to the point where kind of read my earlier point actually about people manifesting monsters. It makes you wonder if him being told as the villain of this mythological story over and over again has lent some level of credence to his ability to cast that monstrous energy, right? He's obviously able
Mm,
to be brought up from the underworld in a way that leaves him much more well manifest than other spirits will see. We know that Pan eventually dies because not enough humans believe in him. And we get the
uh-huh.
canonical reasoning in this universe that the gods exist by the will of mortals believing in them.
Yep.
So perhaps Tantalus truly does have some monstrous level of power that he can emit by the knowledge of more people that know his story. Perhaps him telling this story isn't even just a way to exert control and put fear into the hearts of these campers, but to literally bolster and reaffirm his own strength in this moment.
Mhm. Yeah, power through acknowledgement, huge thing. That's
That's it.
it's
I just think it's
it's
really fucking cool. It's real
it is.
good.
Yeah, no, it's super good, and it goes on, the kind of dramatic flair, I think, ends with Clarice going off, but he does
Mhm.
snap at Percy again, says, "What about you, Percy Jackson?" I'm shocked he didn't say Perseus. Uh,
Mhm.
didn't use the full proper name, but what about you, Percy Jackson? No comments from our dishwasher, and here we get a bit from Percy. He says, "I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to give him satisfaction of punishing me again." Which, again, it's a simple line, and Percy it's not the first time that he said, I'm not gonna play into this guy's game," but I do like he learned something from that story. Tantalus
Mhm.
specifically said, yeah, he was punished by the gods, but he had his moment of satisfaction. And isn't that what
Mhm.
really matters? That he won, and forever and always, he will be the winner at that moment. He tricked the gods. He did that. They will never be able to take that away.
And Percy is unwilling to give him another one because he
Yeah,
knows that he would hold on to it for another 3 millennia.
exactly. So with that done, the campfire has ended. Tantalus says, "Good. All right. Just as a friendly reminder, nobody leaves this camp without my permission. Anyone who tries, well, assuming they even survive the attempt, they're going to be expelled forever. But it's not going to happen that way. We're not going to have to expel anybody because the harpies are going to be enforcing curfew from now on, and they're
Yeah, they're
always
just gonna fucking eat you.
yep, yep." And he ends with, "Good night, my dear campers. Sleep well." He waves his hand, the fire is extinguished, and the campers trail off towards their cabins in the dark.
Yeah. God, it feels like you could end the chapter there, but we've got 10 pages left.
So, Connor, I'll go ahead and say it. I would have ended the chapter there.
Yeah, you think
I
so?
would have. I think this entire next chunk, or I guess next half of the chapter, could have been its own thing. Absolutely, it could have. I think there's enough material on the front half that it's got a good beginning, middle, and end. And I was shocked that it continued. I truly don't understand why, too. Because sometimes you run into this where it's like, "Ooh, this is a long chapter," but, like, you couldn't really break it down anymore. The best stopping point would have been, like, 16 pages into this 20-page chapter, and do you really
Mhm.
want a 4-page chapter unless it's for, like, an artistic flourish? And so most of the time, it's, like, tacked on at the end, but it's fine. This is
These really would have
legitimately
been 2 perfectly split 10-page chapters.
yes. Yeah.
Huh.
It's very weird. So I don't know if it's because Rick is like, "Oh, I have a chapter count that I have to hit. I can't
Mhm.
be more and I can't be less. It's gotta be exactly this number." I doubt that. I wouldn't think that's the case. I don't know. It's a little odd. I don't think it takes away from the chapter because, again, both parts of it are really fucking good.
Yeah, this back half is gonna be good for very different reasons, but
Yes.
we can do our full recap where we talk about all the stuff we liked at the end, because I gotta keep us moving. So,
Yes, of course.
Percy gets back to Poseidon Cabin, and he says, "I couldn't explain things to Tyson. He knew I was sad, he knew I wanted to go on a trip, Tantalus wouldn't let me." And Tyson, demonstrating some of his honestly solid intuition, asks Percy, "You will go anyway?" And Percy's like, "I don't know. It would be very hard." And Tyson, sweetheart that he is, "I will help." Percy's like, "I can't ask you to do that. It's too dangerous." Tyson tinkers, and Percy realizes he's gotten the wrong idea only too late. Tyson says, "Annabeth doesn't like Cyclopes. You don't want me along?"
Mhm.
And the funny thing is by this point, Annabeth is genuinely she's not over the Cyclopes racism, but she is truly on a different wavelength. She's like, "You're right, my focus was misplaced. We need to save camp and save Grover." She's just not
Mhm.
concerned about this at all right now. So that's not actually true. Percy tries to explain. He's maybe telling a little bit of a white lie and going, "Annabeth likes you, really." Tyson's got some tears in the corner of his eye. And Percy, interestingly, is thinking about if Cyclops, the same way that satyrs can sense human emotions. And we'll never get this brought up again. It could just be that Tyson kind of knows Percy that well at this point. They have been
Mhm.
friends for about a year, at least a full school year. So It's certainly possible, I suppose, that he has this magic ability, but I'm not even really gonna address it. I think this works. I think this works really well. Percy gets to see some of how his actions are impacting others and how the situation is not just complicated for him.
Mhm.
And that's when we start to get into some more like genuine character development for Tyson beyond just lovable, defensive of Percy, not that smart.
Yep.
Because he's sniffling now. He goes, "Daddy always cared for me. I think he was mean to have a Cyclops boy. I should not have been born." And props to Percy. He immediately is like, "Don't talk that way. Poseidon claimed you, so he must care about you a lot." But even
Yeah.
Percy, he starts to like trail off. He's like, "Shit, did he though? Just left you to live on the streets in a box for years? Like, what the fuck?"
Yeah, there's twofold here. And we've talked about this before that Tyson acts as a maybe not a foil to Percy, but almost like a mirror that Percy has to look at.
Mhm.
And when Percy says, Poseidon claimed you, he must care about you a lot. And he does not say that with confidence. There are ellipses there. I almost wonder if he's saying that as an affirmation for himself as well.
Absolutely. I think especially given the context of the conversation with Hermes that we're about to get, that is absolutely what you, the reader, are supposed to be thinking about,
Mhm.
whether you know it or not.
Yeah. But in this case, Percy, perhaps not being that introspective just yet, does raise it again, just in case you forgot. Tyson lived on the streets of New York City in a cardboard refrigerator box. How? In what world would Tyson think that Poseidon cared for him?
Yeah.
Again, Tyson says, Daddy always cared for me. How is that caring? What kind of
Yeah.
dad would let that happen to his kid, even if his kid was a monster? Great questions. I don't know. And
And
it adds a different aspect of Percy already has a very tumultuous relationship with Poseidon for reasons we talked about all last book, but this has to add another facet to it. The idea of
yeah,
like, "Dad, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, yeah, fuck around with me, whatever. You're doing this to other people too? You suck."
yeah. Well, and it's the next line that I think really starts to show some of that introspection from Percy's part properly outside of the lines right before it that say it pretty explicitly. Because then he goes, "Tyson, dot, dot, dot. Camp will be a good home for you. The others will get used to you. I promise." I think that little moment of pause in there is Percy trying to convince himself of that in a certain way, right? We've seen that camp, while it is absolutely the safest place for demigods, it is the place where demigods can be themselves. It is not a safe place for demigods. And
Mhm.
it's not always a good place to be. See Tantalus
Yeah.
literally a page ago. So, in a weird way, I think this is Percy kinda trying to convince himself as well that, like, "No, camp is safe. Dad directed us to this place. That must be his plan for us. He definitely does care. Let's just move on and not think about it." Like,
Yeah.
truly, it feels like that's his way of going, But we're here, so it must be okay. Push the feelings down."
Yep.
And then we get something honestly a little terrifying. Percy tries to fall asleep and he starts thinking about the empathy link with Grover and what Grover told him about how if Grover dies, that Percy might just never wake up. Percy's like, "Maybe I don't want to sleep tonight. I'm going to go for a walk."
Yeah, just really quick because I do feel like I need to codify this. Going back
Mhm.
just a skosh, just a
Please.
little tiny bit. We've talked about how we didn't like Tyson as a child when we first read these books, and we feel horrible about that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yes.
After this section, I once again wrote that I wish I could go back to me as a child and, like, kick me in the rib cage, because how fucking bad of a person could I have been to read this and be like, "Man, this guy sucks. I don't like him. He's annoying. I miss Grover."
All
I'm
right.
going to officially add that to the bingo card. Every time Tyson does literally anything, and you and I as adults are like, "Wow, what a just endearing and sad little guy." I guess big guy.
Yeah.
And then we think about how awful we were as children. There we go. on the bingo card. Feel free to retroactively add that.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have much to say that makes me feel better. I truly, in my
Exactly.
book,
So
I have
so
written right here
Connor,
on my page, I was a shithead.
yeah, right? So Connor, we are gonna take a note from literally from Percy's book. We're gonna push that down and move on.
Sure are. So Percy decides he's going to go for a little midnight stroll to clear his head and not sleep because he wants to wake up tomorrow morning. He hears laughter of dryads chasing owls through the forest. He can smell the strawberry fields wafting along. And he's trying to enjoy Camp Half Blood. He's just feeling like something isn't quite right. He says the sickness of Thalia's tree was spreading across the valley. He thinks about if Clarice is actually going to be able to do anything. And he says, screw it. He reaches out under his bed. He grabs a 6-pack of Cokes. These are going to be important. He does point out that they're apparently against the rules, but if you talk to the right guy in Hermes' cabin and pay him a few golden drachma, he can get you just about anything from the local convenience store, which is
Mhm.
just more really good world building. And it's also subtly setting you up for where we're heading. Just that little mention of Hermes just to keep you on your mind. There's a break, and of course, Percy is headed for the beach. He brings a blanket with him, he spreads it out near the surf, and he opens a Coke. I like that he says, for some reason, sugar and caffeine always calm down my hyperactive brain, which is specifically funny because there are two types of people with ADHD. There are genuinely a subset of people where the symptoms of ADHD make it so that when you drink caffeine, it specifically makes you sleepy instead of more awake.
Mhm.
And then there's the other group of people. I'm in the other group of people. And it turns you into the Energizer fucking bunny. And it's
Yeah.
a real fucking trip, let me tell you. I have never been on regular stimulants. Well, I suppose I have been on regular stimulants. I've never been on the hard drug kind of stimulants. But frankly, I can't imagine the feeling is that different.
That adds up. We've never talked about that, but that is incredibly in character.
Jack, if you've ever heard my wife jest that I'm literally not allowed to have caffeine, there's a reason for that. I truly become an unruly person who never
Thank
shuts up.
God.
And I'm already someone who never
That's
shuts up.
that's incredible. I was gonna say that seems nigh impossible.
Frankly, it's impressive.
Percy is enjoying his time, or at the very least trying to enjoy his time by the wake, and is calming himself and thinking, "Man, I really wish Poseidon would talk to me, just give some advice, anything." And the sky is clear and starry, and he's looking at the constellations that Annabeth taught him. Sagittarius, Hercules, Corona, Borealis. And then somebody says, "Beautiful, aren't they?" And turn the page, I almost spewed soda.
I love that Percy almost just genuinely was like, spit take.
Yeah, I mean, that's fucking scary, man. Imagine just being really alone, contemplative in your thoughts in the dead of night looking at the stars, where nobody knows that you're there and somebody's just like, "Yeah, nice sky, huh?"
I love the way he describes him too. He looks over and he's just seeing a regular guy, basically.
Yeah.
He says he's in nylon running shorts and a New York City Marathon t shirt. He was slim and fit with salt and pepper hair and a sly smile. He looked kind of familiar, but I couldn't figure out why.
I wonder who it is.
I wonder, baby.
The chapter will try and skirt around the concept of who this mystery man is, like what the identity is. You could probably figure it out pretty fucking fast. So I'm just going to say it's Hermes. You learned that after probably the second bit of evidence where it's explaining kind of how he looks or how he acts. But this introduction, this entire sequence between Hermes and Percy, fucking awesome.
God, it's so
It is
fun.
like, intimate?
Yeah.
It reminds me of, and we'll talk about it more kind of as we get further into it, but it reminds me of talking with, like, the really cool uncle or the really cool older cousin, which in the
Hmm.
case of this, it is specifically older cousin.
Yep.
But there is something here where Percy feels free to speak and the person he's speaking to is very affirming. And not
Yeah.
in a, "I'm trying to grease the wheels" kind of way, or "I'm just blowing smoke." In a, "I really kinda respect where your head's at, kid. Like, keep that up."
Yeah, he's not gonna talk down to Percy. He's
No.
gonna be a little mysterious in that way that gods kinda always are with a few things,
Yes.
but unlike a lot of the other gods, he's going to level with him and be like, "Genuinely want your opinion. Also, you really should find this helpful. I'm gonna talk to you almost like an equal for most of this
Yes.
conversation."
Which makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Mhm.
he's the people god.
He's the god of
That's
communicating well.
That's the whole shtick, and so Percy's like, "Okay, who the fuck is this guy? This is not supposed to happen. Maybe there's just some man doing a nighttime jog down the beach and straight inside camp." But again, that seems really implausible. Regular mortals aren't supposed to even enter the valley, but I guess because of the tree's magic weakening, maybe he'd slip in. But also, it's like 1 in the morning. What kind of fucking maniac jogs down a beach far away from civilization at 1 in the morning? And, like, where would he have come from? How far would he have gone? It's just not adding up. But despite all of that, the man is very polite. "Yes, may I join you? I haven't sat down in ages." And Percy addresses, "Listen, I know. Strange guy, middle of the night. Common sense. I am a child. I am meant to run away, yell for help, etc., etc." But the guy acted just so calm about the whole thing. It was kinda hard to be afraid. And I like that as an aspect of Hermes. He is
Mhm.
very subduing, and not in a malicious way,
No, but in,
necessarily.
like,
He's got
we
a
can
thieves.
chat about this kind of a way. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we've seen other gods. Ares gives off an aura that makes you wanna get mad and yell at him. Hades gives off an aura that makes you wanna be subservient. Makes a lot of sense that Hermes would give off an aura that just makes you wanna be agreeable.
Yeah, it's sedation, but not in a way of like, "Oh, he just chloroformed me," in the way where it's like, "You know what? I feel like I just kinda smoked a joint." Like,
"Yeah, I'll hear you out, man.
yeah,
What
why
you
not?
got?"
Exactly. And so Percy's like, "Yeah, sure. Take a seat." And Hermes, well, the man, smiles. "Your hospitality does you credit. Oh, and Coca-Cola. May I?" He asks again. He sits at the end of the blanket. He pops a soda, takes a drink. He's like, "That's good. Peace and quiet." And then a cell phone goes off in his pocket. This jogger sighs. He pulls out his phone, and Percy's eyes get big because they glow with a bluish light. But when it extended the antenna, I like that he's got an old-fashioned cell phone with
Mhm.
the antennas. He pulls the antenna out, and 2 little creatures come writhing around it, green snakes no bigger than earthworms. And the jogger didn't seem to notice or even really care. He checked the display, and he cursed under his breath. He's like, "I gotta take this, just a sec." And he starts talking, "Hello?" And he's listening, and the little mini snakes are writhing up and down the antenna right by his ear, and he doesn't seem to care. Jogger's just like, "Yeah, listen, I know. I don't care if he is chained to a rock with vultures pecking his liver. If he doesn't have a tracking number, we can't locate his package. A gift to humankind. Great. You know how many of those we deliver? Oh, never mind. Listen, just refer him to Eris and customer service. I gotta go." And then he hangs up. Now, Connor, I'm sure you're frothing at the mouth. There's
I
so much
am.
there. There's so much there. I'll let you take it.
Okay, Jack, I just need you to know that all of this is just a joke inside a joke. Because of course Hermes, yeah, he's the messenger god. Of course he runs packages. Prometheus is the god who gifts to humanity the flames of Olympus
Mhm.
that give effectively humanity life. Period. Full stop. And then after he's like, you just refer him to customer service. Jack, what do you think Eris is the goddess of? Just one guess.
So, I actually do know this, and I know it exclusively because of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy.
That's fun.
Eris is the goddess of discord and chaos, and
And
she is
strife.
and strife. She is the one, and sorry if I'm stealing your thunder with this, but I gotta
No,
flex at least
please.
a modicum of my myth knowledge. She started the Trojan War with her golden apple.
Sure did. So, Eris in customer service, he's like, "Oh, yeah, I know where to send you.
Uh,
Customer service, baby. You could talk to a goddess who literally is only here to cause conflict. Have
uh-huh.
fun." I just love that Rick is like, "I'm gonna make some commentary here. You know what's the worst thing in the world? Calling customer service."
Yeah, no, super fun. And like I caught all of those. It was rapid fire. It was a good bit of fun. And there's more of that. As we go
Yeah.
on, just Hermes and how he operates is just dripping with character.
It's so fun. One more thing before we move on from Prometheus, because this is actually an important detail to the overarching story of the first 5 novels.
Yeah.
Prometheus is a titan, and notably in Greek mythology, and we're not going to talk about it today because we're going to have a better time to talk about Prometheus in a later novel. But notably in Greek mythology, Prometheus is rescued by Heracles. It's not one of Heracles' 12 labors, but it is one of the most important things he does is he frees Prometheus, which is acknowledging that his father can make mistakes, which is part of what makes Heracles a good candidate to become divine. He has
Mm,
wisdom beyond the wisdom of the existing gods and sees when the old gods have made mistakes, and therefore there is a time for new gods to rectify those mistakes. In this universe, he's still chained up and having his liver pecked out every day. That's important because the Titans are rebelling, and Prometheus might not end up on the side of the gods this time.
mm, very interesting.
It's just, again, I love when Rick slips in these little details, and it's like, did he do that on purpose, or was that just for the joke? Because either way, I like it. But if there's the joke and something else, this is interesting that he's setting that up this early.
Yeah, good call out, man.
But with that, Hermes hangs up the phone. He says, "Sorry, overnight express business is just booming." Percy, ever observant, "You have snakes on your phone." "What? Oh, yes, they don't bite. Say hello, George and Martha." I love George and Martha. They're fantastic.
I Dude, I forgot about George and Martha.
Ah,
I
they're perfect.
love these guys. They're awesome. He says, "Yeah, say hello, George and Martha." And then there's just a raspy male voice inside of Percy's head. "Hello, George and Martha." And then a female voice, "Don't be sarcastic." "Why not?" George demanded. "I do all the real work." And Hermes immediately is like, "All right, cut that out. We're not doing this again." Which so clearly this is a pre-existing problem. He slips the phone back into his pocket and is like, "All right, anyways, peace and quiet." He crosses his legs, he goes crisscross applesauce, he looks up at the stars, and I really do like this. I mean, he's Hermes. He's a trickster, god of thieves, god of messengers, whatever, right? So I guess everything that he does could have some sort of selfish ulterior motive.
Mhm.
But it really does feel like this is just a guy that despite all he does, he has seen literally everything everywhere. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Even the places nobody's ever allowed to go, he's been there and back multiple times.
Mhm.
But he just I get the sense that he still has this wanderlust, that he is still in his own way, even with all his experience, still kind of enamored with the world
Yeah.
and curious. And that's a very different personality from most every other god, if not all the other gods that I think we come across throughout this series.
Yeah. I certainly think so. I think Hermes has such a distinct personality, and that's part of what makes him so endearing whenever he shows up to give Percy advice or talk to him about anything. He
Yeah.
just he's got this way about him, and it even continues into the way that he asks Percy what his favorite constellation is, and Percy says,
Yes.
I like Hercules." And he says, "Why?" He genuinely wants to know what the demigod is thinking. First of all,
Yes.
you could just leave it there and be like, crazy that Hermes the god is willing to be like, "Why is that, Percy?"
Well, this is important, just before we really get into that.
Mhm.
Yes, I agree with all of it, but the setup is important too. He crosses his ankles, he looks up at the stars. Been a long time since I've gotten to relax. Ever since the telegraph. Rush, rush, rush. So he says, "I am busy all the time." Presumably he has not rested in an inordinate amount of time, I'm sure, and there is always something to do. But instead of getting straight to business, he does ask Percy a seemingly innocuous question, but an
Mhm.
important one. Do you have a favorite constellation? He doesn't even ask, "What's your favorite constellation?" Just, "Do you? Is this something you've thought about?" And I like he just uses his name. Also, Percy has not shared his name with this man yet,
Nope.
so that's important. You have a favorite constellation, Percy. It's personable now. And Percy, of course, being Percy, is like, "I'm still thinking about those little green fuckers that he's got in his shorts, but, Hercules. Yeah, I like Hercules." And I think where you were going next, which is profoundly interesting, Hermes asks a question that I feel like very few gods would ask for the reason he asked it.
Yes.
Why? Why? And he's
Again,
not asking
you
it's
can
not loaded. It
yeah.
isn't loaded. He genuinely wants to know, "What are your thoughts on this, man?" That's an interesting answer.
And of course, Percy being Percy gives truly an interesting answer. He goes, "Well,
Yeah.
because he had rotten luck, even worse than mine. It makes me feel better." And it says the jogger chuckled. "Sure, man.
Yep.
Not because he was strong and famous and all that." And Percy goes, "No." And he goes, "You're an interesting young man. And so, what now?" And Percy says, "I knew immediately what he was asking. What did I intend to do about the fleece?" And before we get to the next joke, because they just continue to be funny,
Yeah.
the thing I thought you were going to bring up, and I think it's kind of what you were saying with it, is Hermes is this constantly busy character. The
Yes.
fact that he is taking any time at all to
Uh-huh.
stop and genuinely be like, "So, Percy, what's going on in your life?"
Yeah.
shows the weight that Hermes recognizes of Percy's burden and Percy's importance, which makes him probably one of the only gods, period, full stop, to acknowledge the importance of demigods in the ecosystem of gods and monsters, as we've talked about many times. Chiron will spell it out explicitly for us. He will say, well, of course they need you, because who else would steal lightning bolts and do quests? Hermes is the only god so far who's been actively willing to go, "I see that you are important." And in a weird sense, it almost feels like he's testing Percy,
Mhm.
knowing the types of things that he's going to give him and where this conversation is going to go. And
Yes.
it's so interesting. This is
Yeah.
really, really good.
And I was going to make that exact point. I set it up. You absolutely knocked it down, which is great. I was gonna do it when he says point blank period, Martha, the snake muffled from the pocket says, "Yeah, I've got
Mhm,
Demeter on line 2." And he says, "Not now. Not now." This is the one god who truly has no time. He's always doing
mhm.
something and is making time. The
Yes.
time he doesn't have, he's giving to Percy, and that is fucking huge.
It makes me see kind of all of Hermes' Cabin in a different perspective. Because we ribbed on Hermes' Cabin a lot last book about
Mhm.
how it's overcrowded and it's got all these issues, and that is what makes Luke radicalized. But we actually do know of quite a few claimed Hermes campers. Of course, it makes sense. The messenger of the gods would send the message, "This one's mine." And he is actively taking in the lost campers, so to speak, and making sure they
Mhm.
have a place. It's more than fucking Zeus, god of hospitality, as we'll talk about later in this episode, does in his giant empty cabin. And so it makes you wonder if truly Hermes doesn't have time, like genuinely does not have the time to go and talk to his kids. Like, obviously, he can make time for Percy, but unfortunately, as we discussed, Percy is the exception
Yeah.
because he is very important. It's just very interesting to think maybe Hermes is like one of the few gods who really would try and reach out and do something for his kids and just can't.
Mhm.
Literally just cannot make it work.
I totally agree. I think that is a very fair assessment. And again, he doubles down on this. He says, like, "Listen, I got Demeter, line 2, not now. Or leave a message." Martha says, "She's not gonna like that. Last time you put her off, all the flowers in the flower delivery division wilted." And he says, "Tell her I'm in a meeting." He rolls his eyes. He says, "Sorry again, Percy. You were saying." There's just I don't know how to describe it. Connor, Have you ever been in a situation where you meet with somebody who you know truly has a million other better things to do? You could name them all off the top of your head. Just like, "Oh, they could be doing this, they could be doing that." They are profoundly maybe talented or sought after or have, an important job or position, but they are giving you their undivided attention. And they
Yeah.
make it clear that they want to give you their undivided attention. There is such a almost like euphoria that comes from that.
Mhm.
This sense that this person, who again could be doing literally anything else, is giving me not only the time of day, but actively participating in this discussion and seems interested in me. I'm not the interesting one here.
It's emboldening,
Yes.
truly. I think you've hit the nail on the head with, like, euphoria as a I wouldn't have described it that way, but I think that that captures it very well, and I gotta imagine that's how Percy is feeling in this moment.
Mhm.
I am a little frustrated that it takes Percy as long as it does for
Yeah.
him to realize who this is, as he's like Percy's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "Come on, seriously? You haven't put it together yet?" And the snakes are like, show him, I haven't been full size for months." And George is like, "Don't listen to her, she just wants to show off." And, of course, he goes, "Original form, please." He displays the full caduceus, and Percy can finally put it together, and he says perhaps the dumbest thing ever. "You're Luke's father, Hermes." But
Now,
to Hermes'
is it
credit,
yep.
he doesn't take it poorly. Other gods would have been like, "Alright, and smited. Smote, you dead." Hermes takes it in stride, he purses his lips, he's clearly offended, but he's still willing to be like, "You are interesting, kid. I'm gonna let you get away with this one." And he says, "Luke's father. Normally, that's not the first way people introduce me." Frankly, it's fascinating.
I think it is immensely interesting that that is what
Mhm.
Percy led with. And one, it shows how much of an impact that Luke had on Percy because he is literally face to face with this god and still the first thing that comes to mind, the major property of this incredibly important deity is that he's Luke's dad. The implications are astonishing.
Yeah, it goes to show Luke's importance, something that we're so happy to talk about, but we gotta get through. We can't stop and talk about Luke now.
I
But
know, but you know what? Fuck it. We're this is gonna be
we're
a long
already
episode.
here.
We're already
Y
here. Why not? Let's get cozy, right?
It
Here's
is
the thing. It speaks to Luke, right?
Mhm.
But I also think it speaks to Percy, where instead of giving the gods what they might view as their due respect, he views them as the parents of his peers, and that's more important to him. Percy cares far more granted, he hates Luke right now, but he cares far more about Luke or cared far more about Luke than he ever did about Hermes as a concept, as some sort of divine being.
I'll go a step further, and I will say that this, to me at least, implies that Percy sees them in a very human way.
Mm,
If he says, "Hermes, you're Luke's father," that says the first thing I think about you is your fallible acts, your fallible aspects. The
mhm,
parts of you that are most human, your ability to have kids and fuck them up.
mhm,
Like, that is what's interesting, and I do think that that is part of why, despite this, Hermes continues to give Percy the time of day, because Hermes is the god of communication and talks with the other gods all day long, and
yeah,
presumably delivers messages to mortals, at least at some level of frequency. So the fact that a mortal isn't like, "Oh dear revered Hermes, please, like, spare me, deliver this message," and it's just like, "Oh, you're Luke's dad." For a guy who deals with so much pressure of everything, probably even makes him feel like, "You know what? There's a reason I like you. There's a reason I'll sit down and talk to you. It's because
yes,
you're gonna tell it to me straight."
yeah. Oh my god, yes. Are you kidding me? Hermes seems like the last god to give a fuck about reverence. Let's
Mhm.
just let's cut the shit. I don't have time for it. I literally do not have time for the
Yep.
bullshit. So let's just get rid of all of that. Again, we just said Hermes has been everywhere. He's seen everybody. I truly believe he has had every conversation. So for him to be like, "Damn, that's a first." Thank you for keeping this relatively interesting. You're an
Yeah,
interesting guy, Percy. Thank you. Genuinely, I think he purses his lips. I didn't view that as he's offended. I viewed that more as like, damn, that kind of hurt, but like fair. Yeah.
that's what I meant by offended. That's the, "Ooh, struck a nerve."
Yeah.
But there are other gods where if you find a way to strike a nerve with Ares, he's
Mhm.
going to try and kill you.
Yeah.
If you strike a nerve with Dionysus, he's going to have you look into his eyes and see the madness within. Even Athena does not take shit from this despite being like the protectress of heroes, another one of the gods who interacts with mortals most. Would have taken more offense to this in this moment than Hermes, who's just like, hmm, that was a choice, Percy.
Yeah. I love this guy. I love this guy so much, and I truthfully, I remember very little about this book, but in the series, I remember very, very little about Hermes. This is another one of those situations where I am actually being reintroduced to a character, basically with a blank slate, and
Mhm.
I'm rocking with them. I love this guy.
It really feels like Rick is most in his bag and truly pulls out the most effort when he is writing the gods. Because
Mm.
thinking across book 1 as well, I don't think there's a moment where we've met a god where it's been like, "Well, that was weird." I think he's nailed every single one. Truly.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. That feels right.
Just like obviously, we both talked about how some of our favorite chapters are the meetings with Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon in chapter 1, or in book
Mhm.
1, sorry. This meeting with Hermes is impeccable. Ares feels really interesting and was another one of our favorite chapters that you and I put on our honorable mentions list.
Yeah,
Dionysus is consistently just so fun to interact with.
yeah,
Rick really does a good job of understanding what makes these different gods interesting and presenting them to Percy in such a way that they interact with him differently and bring different things to the table. And I want to give credit where it's due. It's really fucking good and really well done.
yeah. No notes, man. Agreed, 100%. But we gotta get back to these little snake fucks.
Indeed.
Enough of
True.
that. So Hermes is like, "Damn, okay, yep, Luke's father. That's new. Usually it's, gotta thieves, gotta messengers, travelers." And then George chimes in. "Yeah, gotta thieves works." Martha goes, "Oh, don't mind George." She flicks her tongue. "He's just bitter because Hermes likes me best." "He does not." "Does too." And then Hermes goes, "Behave. I will turn you back into a cell phone and set you on vibrate. Still, I wanna know, what do you intend to do about this quest?" And Hermes is the perfect guy in this situation. Literally, he's perfect for this.
Hmm.
Is Percy saying, I don't have permission to go. And Hermes is like, yeah, nope, you sure don't. Is that gonna stop you? Because Hermes knows that Percy is impertinent. He delivered.
Hmm.
He delivered Medusa's head. He's like, I know what you're about, man. All right, let's come on.
Let's cut the
Really?
bullshit.
Are you gonna go or are you not? And he's like, I want to go. I have to save Grover. And Hermes smiled. He says, I knew a boy once. Oh, younger than you by far. A mere baby, really. And this is great. George once again chimes in. He says, here we go again, always talking about himself. And Martha goes, quiet. Do you want to get set on vibrate? And Hermes just keeps waxing poetic. One night, when this boy's mother wasn't watching, he sneaked out of their cave and stole some cattle that belonged to Apollo. And Percy, once again, king of good questions, did he get blasted into tiny pieces? He asks. Like Hermes thinks about it. No, actually, everything turned out quite well. To make up for his theft, the boy gave Apollo an instrument he'd invented. A lyre. Apollo was so enchanted with the music, he forgot all about being angry. And Percy, 2 for 2. So what's the moral? And Hermes, I like asked kind of incredulously, the moral? Oh, goodness, you act like it was a fable. It's true. Does truth have a moral? Which is interesting. And Percy
It
thinks,
is.
yeah. And he thinks, he's like, I don't know. It sounds like you have thoughts. I don't want to cut you off.
It is. It's just that the fact that Hermes wasn't being like, there's a moral here, but just like, I don't know, this seems like a vaguely relevant story to your current situation, yet again shows that he's different from the other gods. And he's like, I'm not trying to pander to you. I don't know,
Yeah.
isn't this helpful to you? I'm just trying to tell a story that is interesting. Like, are we relating right now? Is that what we're doing, young cousin?
Uh-huh.
Like, that feels like truly so my cousin, who is, like, 10, is very into Percy Jackson, and this feels like when I talk to him. He's like, "So, was there a point to that?" And I'm like, "No, I just really like Percy Jackson, I wanna talk to you about it." He's like, "Oh, yeah, okay, we could do that." And it's like, "Oh, cool." Like, it just
Yeah,
has that vibe, and I
it
really
does.
enjoy it.
I like that interpretation. I'm gonna push back a little bit. I think Hermes knows exactly what he's doing because the story is directly it is 100% related, which is,
Oh, of course
"Listen,
he does.
dog, sometimes the rules that shit's for the birds. Sometimes you just gotta do shit, and what matters is when you do shit that people frown upon, you gotta do something even better to make up for it, and then it's all kinda worthwhile." And so he's like, "What's the moral? Does truth have a moral?" Percy's like so Hermes says, How about this? Stealing is not always bad. What do you like that one?" And Percy says, "I don't think my mom would like that moral." And George very helpfully suggests, "Rats are delicious." And then Martha goes, Why does what does that have to do with the story, man?" And George says, "Well, nothing. I'm hungry." He was just adding in. He just wanted to be included. And Hermes says, I've got it." And this is why I think he actually was doing
Yes.
a bit of a rhetorical flourish. He says, "Young people don't always do what they're told, but they can pull it off and do something wonderful. Sometimes they can escape punishment." How's that? And really, if you wanna be real succinct with it, really wanna drive home the main kind of force behind Percy, I would say behind the first book, the idea
Mhm.
of being a disruptor for good, know when you should be impertinent.
Yes. Absolutely. And Percy's catching on. "You're saying I should go anyway, even without permission?" Hermes is like, "Finally, we're there. You caught on." And this is when he's like, "Okay, I can give you what you need to get going." He
Yeah.
says, "Martha, may I have the first package, please?" And then the snake pukes out the gifts,
Yep.
which is her jaw unhinges because, snake. And she, quote, belched out a stainless steel canister, an old fashioned lunchbox thermos with a black plastic top. The sides of the thermos were enameled with red and yellow ancient Greek scenes, a hero killing a lion, a hero lifting up Kerberos, the three-headed dog. And Percy says, "That's Hercules." But how? Hermes just, "Never question a gift. This is a collector's item, okay? Hercules Busts Heads, season 1. Great show."
Yep.
It's just so good. So he gives him the canister, and Percy goes, "Wait a minute, this is a gift?" And Hermes is like, "One of two, pick it up." And this is something I thought was really cool too, is Percy picks it up and goes, "One side's always cold. It's a compass." And Hermes, genuinely surprised, is like, "What the fuck? No, it's not." He says, "Very clever. I never thought of that." But its intended use is a bit more dramatic. "Uncap it, and you will release the winds from the four corners of the earth to speed you on your way." Notably, very similar to the bag of wind that Odysseus is given in the Odyssey. Remember, I
Mhm.
mentioned that this draws heavily on the Odyssey and the tale of the Argonauts?
Yes. Yep.
So that's gift one. And then the snakes are still doing jokes. I want to read them all for you, but we really must keep moving.
Yeah,
And
just
so
know there's a lot of sexual tension between George and Martha.
And so this time, George unhinges his jaw and coughs up a little plastic bottle filled with chewable vitamins, some fucking Flintstones.
Got the
And
Flintstone vitamins.
he says, "Are these minotaur shaped?" And Hermes picks up the bottle and rattles it. He says, "The lemon ones, yes. The grape ones are furies, and or are they hydras? Hmm, either way, don't take one unless you really, really need it. How will I know if I really, really need it? You'll know, believe me. 9 essential vitamins and minerals, amino acids, oh, everything you need to feel yourself again." I wonder if that'll be relevant for a myth section
Uh,
later.
Probably not. I don't think we're gonna see these again. I genuinely, joking aside, I have, again, no fucking memory of what these are. I have no idea what they do or how they'll be used. But are the items themselves kind of lame? Yes, but I think that's part of what makes them fun. Because this
Yes.
is that, like, oh man, this is the mundane shit that is mythologically really important. Like, these are the magic items. It's like when James Bond gets his, like, this is the pen that explodes, and this
Dude,
is your watch that's a laser.
I hate to point out because we did just record the movie episode. This is the this is a pen.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a
Exactly.
multivitamin. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. But it's neat and it's fun, and it gets me excited to see, like, how are these things going to be used? I'm a sucker for a good magic item,
oh,
especially
these are
magic
fun
items with
ones.
creative uses,
I
and they
am
seem
curious, Jack. Do you
mhm.
have any guesses on the multivitamins? No is totally okay, but they are linked to a mythological thing, so I was just curious if you happen to remember what they might be.
Oh, they're linked to an actual myth?
Mhm. These multivitamins are actually a mythological item. They haven't been called it, like, by name or anything. It's not like there's Jason's magic multivitamin.
Huh. Jesus, magic multivitamin. That's pretty good. I don't know why that tickled me so much. My guess, well, okay, let me logic through this, as I often do. My first thought would be, okay, maybe it's like a healing item. It's the idea of, like, you pop it if you're feeling really low, or maybe it gives you extra strength, but then that would just take the place of nectar and ambrosia, and that feels kinda weird to double up on it. So maybe it is just something that makes you, like, physically even more powerful for a bit because it's your multivitamins. But that also feels kinda like, at that point, why wouldn't Hermes just be like, "Hey, man, take these if you just wanna, like, pop somebody's skull with your bare hands." So, I know that this is because it was like he says, "This'll turn you back to, like, what you need to be when you'll feel like yourself again." Because this is the Odyssey,
Mhm.
I'm sure that Circe's Island is gonna be a thing. So maybe this is the thing that will, like, turn you back to your true form or your mortal form or your human form. It just basically sets you back to square one.
You are close enough to being correct. Yes, this is related to Circe's Island. This
Mm.
is moly. So when Odysseus goes to Circe's Island, he specifically gives Odysseus a magic herb that only gods can harvest that makes him immune to Circe's magic for a short period of time.
Ooh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
these are moly vitamins instead of
Interesting.
multivitamins.
That's fucking funny. That's awesome. That's really good. That's even better.
Yep. So, those are Percy's 2 gifts. They're both Odyssey themed, and he has not had a probing friend to go, "Come on, you can get there." So he just goes, "Thanks? But Lord Hermes, why are you helping me?" And he says, "Perhaps because I hope that you can save many people on this quest, not just your friend Grover." Percy immediately, "You don't mean Luke?" Hermes just doesn't answer.
Mhm.
And he says, "Hey, I'm not gonna tell you what you can intuit." And Percy's like, "Look, Lord Hermes, I mean, thank you, but Luke is beyond saving. He hates you especially. Again, any other god would smite you. But Hermes again, he just looks up at the stars and he says, 'My dear young cousin, if there's one thing I've learned over the eons, it's that you can't give up on your family. No matter how tempting they make it, it doesn't matter if they hate you or embarrass you or simply don't appreciate your genius for inventing the internet. You invented the internet? It was my idea. Rats are delicious.
Thank you, Martha and George.
In the real world, it was invented by 3 people working together over various years. 2 people invented the first packet switch network, which is the basis that the internet is built upon. And then one guy later invented the World Wide Web, which is what made the internet accessible to the average consumer. Enjoy that. I got my degree in computer science. Moving
And I
on.
got my degree in political science. Al Gore made the internet.
We have very different takes.
But yes, going back to what's actually important here. He's like, "Listen, I've learned a lot, I've seen a lot, I get where your head's at. Unfortunately, you're wrong. You gotta stick with family." And I don't think that's a very good lesson.
I
Um,
agree.
I wish it was tweaked a little bit, and I'm gonna give this chapter and I'm gonna give Rick the benefit of the doubt for what it's trying to get after, which is nobody is beyond saving. And
Mhm.
there is some truth there, at least more truth. I'll say it, you absolutely can give up on family. Family is not entitled to you, and sometimes your family really fucking sucks and can actually be dangerous. If you are in a situation like that, you are not bound to your family just because. Like, get the
Yeah.
fuck out of that situation.
No
And
one
don't
is
try to fix
entitled to your
them.
time. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It is not your job to fix them or your job to wait it out. So again, that would be my tweak would be, "Listen, Percy, I've seen a lot of things. I've witnessed a lot of miracles. Some of those miracles is that nobody is beyond saving." And in a weird way, I feel like that is best personified in the ideological debates between Daredevil and Punisher.
Yeah,
Like,
I
that's
agree.
really what it is. Percy is the Punisher here.
Mhm.
He's
We
like,
just gotta
"There's
get
no
rid of
fuck
him.
we gotta get him off the fucking streets, Red. Well, come on." But it's true. That's really what the core of this comes down to. And that
Mhm.
is how I'm going to choose to view it. Because again, I and feel free to disagree. I feel like
No,
that
I
is more the
actually fully
spirit of what's
agree.
being captured.
Because this is also like, we know that Luke's inevitable role in the story, that Hermes knows because of a prophecy, is that Luke will be the one to save Olympus and destroy Kronos. Like,
Mhm,
spoiler alert, but that's the whole thing that makes him interesting, is he has to go on this grand arc to realize he was wrong. And Hermes
mhm.
knows that. So truly, by saying you can't give up on family, he is neglecting the point, which is that you really should give Luke specifically a chance because he's angry for the right reasons.
Yes. Yeah.
And to me, it almost feels like, and I think that Rick was writing this. My audience is middle grade fiction. What's an easy theme to get across that they'll understand? And couldn't quite get into the nuance of he has a part to play, and sometimes people need to undergo character development to learn that they were fucking wrong. And
Yes.
you have to help them realize that they're wrong because they may struggle to get there on their
Yep.
to get there on
Yeah.
their own.
Don't damn people for making a mistake. Try and help them see the error of their ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an in-depth and broad topic. Again, I do I disagree with how it's been set up? Yes. Do I understand why it was kind of packaged that way? Sure. I won't belabor that point anymore.
Yep.
But
This
I'm glad
chapter
that
has
we
done
agree at
enough
least.
good shit that we
Yes.
can forgive this one. That's a wrong theme and maybe a bad message to give to 12-year-olds, but
Yes.
we'll let it slip this one time. But with that, Hermes says, "And you, Percy, have a shorter deadline than you realize." Annabeth starts calling his name from the woods, Tyson too, and Hermes says, "I hope I packed well for you. I do have some experience with travel." He snaps his fingers, and 3 yellow duffel bags appear at his feet. He says, "Waterproof, of course. If you ask nicely, your father should be able to help you reach the ship." Percy's like, "Ship?" And he points across the water, and there is a big cruise ship cutting across Long Island Sound. Percy's like, "Wait, I didn't agree to this." And Hermes is like, "Well, then I'd make up your mind in about the next 5 minutes, because if you don't, you're going to be eaten. Ta ta!"
Yeah. He's like, "The harpies will pick your bones clean." And he's like, "I gotta go now. May the gods go with you." Oh, I actually, he says it in a slightly more flavorful way. He says, "Now good
Mhm.
night, cousin, and dare I say it, may the gods go with you."
Mhm.
He opens his hand, the caduceus flies into it. Martha and George take their leave as well. "Good luck," Martha says. "Bring me back a rat," George said. He's very food driven.
We all know animals like that, food motivated.
Yes.
And Hermes jogs off the beach. 20 paces away, he shimmers and vanishes, leaving Percy alone with a thermos and a bottle of chewable vitamins, and 5 minutes to make a quote, impossible decision. And I know we're at the end of the chapter. We should just move on to myths. We should take a seat down on this lovely beach at night and do them before the harpies arrive. Impossible? Are you fucking crazy? Your
Yeah.
boy The goat himself is in danger. You get your ass in the water and you go save him, Percy. What the fuck are you saying? Impossible
Yeah.
decision. That is your best friend. Absolutely the fuck not. An easy decision. I have crossed impossible out and I have written easy.
Yeah, but impossible sounds better. Like, ooh, the
I
stakes.
I know. But all that being said, I really enjoyed that chapter. It's so weird that it has two truly different tones. Everything with
Yeah.
Tantalus is so, like, in a weird way, it's playing with this idea of that's the hopeful part of the chapter, and it's sucking all the hope out, so that
Mhm.
the next part of chapter, you have, like, a Percy who's kind of like, "I am truly hopeless right now," and you get to interplay with Hermes to have this really interesting conversation, so you get these really rich dichotomies in each half of the chapter that, to be completely honest, I think when juxtaposed, clash a little bit, and I think would almost serve better as two separate chapters, but the flow of the two of them into one another is very good.
Yeah. 100%. I also agree. I do think if I could wave a magic wand and change this book just slightly, I would break it up into 2 chapters. I think that makes the most sense. But I do think you raise a good point with that juxtaposition, and so I can't really fault it. It just becomes one very long chapter where
Mhm.
everything is really good, if not a little disjointed in the middle as one part leads into the next. But, I mean, I'll say it. I have a strong feeling when we do our book recap and ratings and all that fun stuff, I think this is gonna be really far near the top.
I think it's gonna score well. I think it's gonna score very well.
Yeah.
But with that being said, it is a beautiful night here on a beach in Long Island Sound, the stars glittering above us. Let's talk about some myths. And I've got 3 myths for you today, Jack. I've got 2 small ones and a big one. Do you wanna start with the small ones or the big one?
Let's start with the small ones.
Okay. We'll go with the small ones in you know what? We'll just do the whole chapter in reverse order. So we'll start with Xenia, which is the ancient Greek concept of hospitality. So if you aren't aware, in ancient Greece, there was genuine cultural importance to the idea of being hospitable to your guests and being a respectful guest to your host. So in this chapter, Percy is specifically complimented by Hermes on his hospitality as he sits down and takes the Coca Cola. What I find really interesting about this is that I think this is something that has successfully made its way into the modern cultural understanding of ancient Greek people and culture. Jack, is that something that like rings with you? Are you aware of this aspect of like ancient Greek culture?
I feel like it's come up kind of in passing, but I don't have an in-depth understanding of it.
Sure, no worries. I'm trying to level set here and figure out how much people know. It doesn't really matter because I have typed out a bunch in my notes as usual to give us a nice broad picture. But in ancient Greece, hospitality was something that was valued for good reason. One of those reasons, perhaps the primary reason, or perhaps as a cause, again, sometimes it's just really hard to say chicken or the egg, is that it was a duty and an aspect of their chief deity. So Zeus, the king of the gods, has an epithet that he was often referred to, which is Zeus Xenios. Remember, Xenia is this entire concept. It can be translated as Zeus hospitable, or perhaps a slightly less accurate but more modern translation that sounds better to us would be Zeus the hospitable. And we can see many literary references to Zeus Xenios across literature. If you go back as far as we can in the written record of the ancient Greeks, we can see this role of Zeus in Book 14 of the Odyssey, where upon his return to Ithaca, Odysseus, disguised as an old homeless man, is welcomed into the home of his swineherd. And I'm going to read you a passage from it. This translation does change from version to version, and while the sentiment is always the same, some translations don't give it the same credence as these important rites that others do. So you may find it different in your copy of the Odyssey. I have cherry picked this one to make it abundantly clear. It reads, Oh, and this is Odysseus telling the swineherd, disguised as a homeless man. He says, I swear by King Zeus, by the rights of hospitality. Wait a minute. This is an Odysseus line. Phew, almost fucked that up.
I swear by King Zeus, by the rights of hospitality, and by that hearth of Odysseus to which I have now come, that all will surely happen as I have said it will. Odysseus will return in this same year. With the end of this moon and the beginning of the next, he will be here to do vengeance on all those who are ill-treating his wife and son.
So, Odysseus, again, in disguise here, and thus talking about himself in the third person, is invoking the rights of hospitality in this moment. He says, Zeus, who right now the most important thing that he has done is he is being the god of hospitality because you have been hospitable to me. And this is how Odysseus actually knows that the swineherd is still loyal to him, right? It's because the swineherd upheld the beliefs of the ancient Greeks that are so important to them. When this swineherd, who has very little, sees this homeless man come up to his door, he welcomes him in and he says, I haven't much because Odysseus has been gone, but I must believe that he will return. And Odysseus goes, yeah, this is my fucking guy right here. And this is specifically important because, of course, in the Odyssey, one of the largest antagonists in Ithaca is, or rather, the antagonist in Ithaca is the swarm of suitors. And what they have done specifically that earns them all their deaths by the end of the story is they have abused the rights of hospitality. They, as guests, have not been respectful to their host, and that is a sin. That is why they are brought to the underworld and not treated like good people who did good in their lives, but are instead like, nah, you all kind of fucking sucked. So, of course, this is not the only time that we can see this referenced in literature. A perhaps better real world example where we can see real world people doing this worship is in Pausanias's description of Greece. He describes a temple to Zeus, specifically Zeus Xenios, that he saw in Sparta. They actually also there have a temple to Athena Xenia. So Athena, as a daughter of Zeus, also sometimes carries this aspect, but it is most important to Zeus. And so we can see that the people of this region very much had temples where they worshipped this specific aspect and part of the gods. So I hope that that's enough to attest that the idea of hospitality being important did exist. It was in the literature. And for this one, and I know I'm the myth guy, I'm actually a little bit more interested in what it looked like in practice. So before we get to that, I'm going to briefly detour us into some more myth, because of course I am. I couldn't just fully leave it out. Because there are very little actual pieces of evidence that we can draw on as to why this was the case. Again, it's a chicken and the egg situation where we don't know if the myths were created and those are what drove this into the cultural zeitgeist of the ancient Greeks, or if instead that this was important to the ancient Greeks and therefore they built their myths around it. Of course, the most obvious answer is probably that it was both and they fed into one another. But modern scholars have come up with a general idea that this practice originated and was normalated by the interplay of myths and the actual culture of the ancient Greeks, and they've named it something, Theoxenia. Theoxenia being the trope of a mortal extending hospitality to a stranger, only to find out that the stranger was actually a god. And because I've done it to you guys many, many times, and this isn't something that appears in like lots and lots of mythologies, but it actually is pretty common, I will point out that this occurs in other places. This is actually commonly a trope of Odin as well.
Mhm.
Unsurprisingly, because Odin and Zeus share roots with one another. But perhaps a story for another time. So, this trope was so common among the story's religion and culture that the modern understanding is that people genuinely believed that if they treated their guests poorly, there was a non zero chance that that guest was a god, whether they knew it or not, and would be punished. So, it was very important to uphold hospitality so that they never incurred the wrath of a deity by offending them. So, with that out of the way, we've established where this comes from a mythological perspective. We can start getting into the idea in practice. And it's actually quite simple. I've touched on it a couple of times already. There were rules for hosts and there were rules for guests. For the host, it was very simple. They had a duty to respect their guests. This could be accomplished by providing their guests with food, drink, gifts, and oftentimes assistance achieving safe passage to their next destination. So, what I think is actually most interesting of all of this is we can actually see that it was considered to be rude to ask your guest any questions until they had finished the meal that you had provided them. This included even the most basic questions like, who are you? Where are you going? So, to look back to the Odyssey, Odysseus, the reason that he's like, I swear on the rights of hospitality that all of this good stuff will happen and your life is going to improve, swineherd, is because the swineherd says, oh, homeless traveler, come into my home, break of my bread, enjoy my food, and he never asks him who he is. So Odysseus is never forced to be like, I should tell you the truth, it's me, Odysseus. He is given the opportunity to keep that anonymity, which is very interesting.
Mhm.
And for guests, given that they're given all of this power, so to speak, as a guest just being able to walk in and say, "Hey, I need shelter," their rules are equally straightforward and relatively strict. You are not to threaten or burden or be rude to your host. Basically, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
But guests are also expected to bring news and stories from wherever they came from. So, travelers play an important role in the ancient Greek ecosystem of spreading news. This is part of why we respect these people. And in turn, they are obligated to give us this important information. And the most important rule for guests is that if you evoke the rights of hospitality as a guest, you are expected to reciprocate if your hosts ever come to your home.
Mm.
And that's it. That is the whole concept of Xenia. And I know I am particularly passionate about this one because I try to live my life in this way. And unsurprisingly, I think that is absolutely influenced by these ancient Greek ideals. But I also think, again, to me, there's just something innately human about wanting to provide shelter and food to other people. I know that I make it very clear to you, Jack, and any of our other friends and any of my other friends that if you come to my city, you are always welcome to my home. You will receive a home cooked meal, and if you need it, a place to stay. And in return, I feel fairly confident that if I were ever to turn up in, say, DC and you had the room, you'd be like, Connor, please come into my home. Like, let's make this work. Like, I think that's really cool because that is what builds community.
Mhm.
And in the same respect, I really do feel like as a modern society, we are losing this, right?
Oh,
Even
Connor,
myself.
we're not losing it. It's fucking lost. It's
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
The idea that you would just let a stranger into your home because they said, hey, I need some help. Can I sleep here and eat your food? You'd be
Yeah.
like, absolutely the fuck not, you crazy person.
Yeah. We might have just been talking about this, and I don't remember the context. But, the fact of the matter is, and maybe I'm just, fucking awful for this, but I think that the default everybody basically lives by is you have to treat every stranger as though they may be the worst fucking person you will ever meet. Just to
Yeah.
start. You have no idea. You have to just expect the worst, and then slowly that will build up, some trust over time. It's kind of this quid pro quo of, "All right, you haven't immediately lunged for my neck and started biting into my
Yes.
jugular. I'm not in imminent physical danger. That's a start. But perhaps you are one of the worst socialized people in the world and you're gonna do something else horrible. Okay, you asked me a semi-decent question. Great, now I feel more comfortable." As opposed to the default of they've invoked the right of hospitality. I just kinda have to assume that they're gonna be a good person. Hearing all of this, that is a fascinating concept. And not only the idea of, oh, people can just be like, I'm gonna host you, stranger, but I love that it goes both ways. Like there is a positive obligation. Not positive as in good, but positive as in there is something that must be performed
Mhm.
or
You
done
must provide for me as well.
on behalf of the stranger who is partaking in the hospitality. That as a concept is really fucking cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I love that you can, like, see it in practice too, because you'll note in that same passage, Odysseus does bring news to the swineherd. He says, "Just so you know, Odysseus is gonna return within the month. Shit is gonna go well. It's gonna return to normal." So,
Yeah.
we get to see a full picture of, like, a positive scenario where this works appropriately,
Mhm.
as well as a negative scenario, of course, of the suitors draining his resources, and I kinda like that because it does give us the negative take as well. But at risk of rambling on this one myth for
I
the
was gonna say
entire
this is the
time,
short one. This is the short one, right?
this is
One
the
of the
short
small
one.
ones?
I'll leave it at that. Maybe be nice to the next stranger you meet. They could be a god after all. Let's talk about something completely fucking different now.
Yeah.
The Bermuda Triangle, baby!
My favorite Greek myth.
A modern myth. I'm not gonna spend too long on this one, but I mean, come on. I just couldn't resist the opportunity to talk about the Bermuda Triangle. Yes, your
Of
favorite Greek
course.
myth, I know.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know if I've made it particularly clear on this podcast before. Growing up, I was absolutely never interested in the spooky or supernatural, and to be honest, I'm still not that interested. I don't like spooky or scary or skeletons, okay?
I
But
I hold on, we're not gonna gloss over that. I have to reiterate on Connor's behalf. You might be thinking, "Oh, surely there are some spooky things." No, not at all. Not anything. Nothing that even if you're just like, "Oh, this is moderately kind of unnerving," Connor will say, "Absolutely not. Do not put that near me." He is,
I'm a
and I mean this
baby.
affectionately, Connor, and I know that you will agree with this, the biggest pussy I have ever met.
Yes, sir. That is so true. I have nothing to add. Jack is correct. That established, now I can get into one of the things that scared me as a child, Jack. Did your grandparents ever just watch documentaries on the History Channel late into the evening while you were over at their house and you were like, "What the fuck?"
No, the game show network was always on.
Okay,
Either that or Matlock.
my grandfather at my grandparents' house in the woods where they have hardly an internet signal to distract yourself with in sight, would watch horrifying History Channel documentaries into the wee hours of the night. And I specifically remember one that talked about the Bermuda Triangle and all the horrors of it. And I'll be honest, it traumatized me. I didn't want to go anywhere near oceans for a significant period of time because of that, because I was worried
Uh-huh.
I would die in the Bermuda Triangle.
Uh-huh.
But here I
Yeah.
am now. And I must admit, there is a certain allure to talking about the Bermuda Triangle as this modern myth all its own. So, what is it? It is a region within the North Atlantic Ocean that is roughly outlined by Florida, Puerto Rico, and surprise, surprise, the island of Bermuda. It is supposedly the location of many mysterious disappearances and other unexplained supernatural phenomena. Spoiler alert, unfortunately, all of those stories are just that. They're stories. Due to public interest, the Bermuda Triangle has since the 1950s, when this rumor started, become an incredibly well researched part of the ocean. And what scientists have determined is that it is no less safe or any more mysterious than any other part of the ocean. And the idea that it is more dangerous to traverse through is simply false. So, where did this idea come from? I alluded to it a moment ago, but it actually was first brought up by an article written in 1950 in the Miami Herald. And it was an op ed piece. And
Of
the
course.
writer suggested that disappearances in the Bermuda area were somehow notable or linked. We didn't have the Bermuda Triangle yet. It was just a list of, so this plane crash happened, this boat sank, and this happened. And it was just a list. Isn't it weird that all of these things happened near Bermuda this year? or over the last few years. Because this was specifically toward the end of World War II, where we had been doing a lot of naval combat. So ships were on the brain, people and sailors were coming back and telling stories. And 2 years later, in 1952, another article, this one was a piece in a magazine, meant as, ooh, interesting. But it's clear that the writer really believed that these disappearances were due to some supernatural force, and it included a map. And on this map, we had Bermuda, we had the different paths of various ships, and they created Triangle. And from that moment forward in 1952, people began colloquially referring to the area as the Bermuda Triangle. And over the next few decades, writers would continue to contribute to the idea while not infrequently adding suggestions of the supernatural. So the first two articles on this were just like, hey, isn't it weird that all these things happened in this spot? The second one is a little bit more, wonder what's going on there. And then from there, all the doors were open and people were like, it's fucking ghosts. It's aliens. It could be anything.
That's that's fucking awesome. See, here's the thing, and Connor, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you looked that far into it, but I'm pretty sure that the Great Lakes have had far more naval disasters and disappearing ships than the area of the Bermuda Triangle.
One, yes, they have. Your Michigander is showing, but
Yep.
absolutely. But
So
what's
what's up with
interesting
that? What's up? Why don't
is
we get a triangle? Why don't we get like a why don't we get the fucking the Michigan Square? Why don't we have crazy stuff?
so true. You know what? Everybody get on it. Tell your family about the Michigan Square and
Hashtag
the wreck of
Michigan
the
Square.
Edmund Fitzgerald.
That's right. There are ghost ships and aliens and, whatever else you fucking insane people can think of.
But so the really interesting thing is, right, is because of all of this hype around it, science have done a genuine shitload of research into it. And what they've realized is that this area does legitimately experience a statistically significant amount more than normal of bad weather. But when you compare it to other areas with similar weather, i.e., lake effect Great Lakes or other dangerous areas at sea that experience these sorts of severe weather patterns, there is not a statistically significant amount more than normal in regard to numbers of missing ships and aircrafts in the region. And in fact, in a way that is all too familiar in today's media climate, a lot of the writing around the topic of the Bermuda Triangle was heavily overtly sensationalized. In many cases, ships would have been blown off course or gone around storms to avoid them, and would have been declared missing and reported as evidence of the Bermuda Triangle, only to arrive in port a week later and have no one report on the correction that, wait, that ship didn't actually sink.
Mm.
Follow up, many incidents that did actually happen, true tragedies, plane crashes, and ship sinking, we knew the reason for. That captain did make the moronic decision to sail straight into that storm. There's a notable plane crash on a beach in the region where it was specifically a stunt pilot, and he was trying to do a fancy stunt, and he crashed and died. And the people were like, must have been the Bermuda Triangle. And it's like, no, it was a stunt pilot attempting a stunt and failing. Like,
But he failed because the frickin' alien lasers shot him down.
but that's what people genuinely reported it as.
Uh-huh.
And so over time, it was continuously sensationalized because the narrative of the Bermuda Triangle, surprise, was profitable. So they
Yeah.
kept writing about it as though it were a genuine supernatural phenomenon, leading all the way to profitable docuseries on the History Channel that traumatized me as a child. Look at that, we came full circle. All of that is to
Wonderful.
say, there are no ancient Greek monsters consuming unlucky sailors in the Bermuda Triangle. At least, not in this universe.
That we know of.
Not us contributing to the sensationalization. But now, on to today's meat and potatoes. Jack, I know it's been quite some time. We've been recording for almost 3 hours.
Yes.
But very early on in the chapter, I put a big old pin
You sure
in the
did.
board
That
because
that
there was something.
innocuous pin right there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Annabeth said what she said was the quote, real story of the fleece. Can you feel my heavy air quotes? I hope so.
I do, yeah. It's incredibly heavy. You're crushing me with them.
So today, I am going to tell you the story of Phrixus and Hell, notably not Cadmus and Europa. Okay, well, there's the elephant in the room. What do I mean by that? So Annabeth said, as a refresher, there were these two children of Zeus, Cadmus and Europa, okay? They were about to get offered up as human sacrifices when they prayed to Zeus to save them. So Zeus sent this magical flying ram with golden wool, which picked them up in Greece and carried them all the way to Colchis in Asia Minor. Well, actually, it carried Cadmus. Europa fell off and died along the way. But that's not important. Well, if you're like me, and a mythology nerd, which I assume many of you are because you're listening, you probably heard Europa fell off and died along the way and thought to yourself, hey, wait a minute. Wasn't Europa a consort of Zeus? How did she die as a child and get abducted by Zeus the horny bull? And you would be asking the right questions because Europa did not, in fact, die as a child. Do you remember this? If I say Europa, does that mean anything to you, Jack?
Is this one of the did you share this myth at one
No,
point?
no, no, no. This isn't one we've talked about
Okay.
before. So you don't have
I'm
to
not
worry
gonna lie.
about it from that
I was
perspective.
starting to sweat. I was like, "Did I totally
Nope.
block this from my memory?" I have no idea who Europa is, Connor.
Okay. No worries. I happened to know about Europa because she's one of the many instances of Zeus turning into an animal and then seducing a woman.
And see, that's the
Okay.
issue. There are so many of those, it's hard to
There
keep
are
track
so
of.
many, but I remember this one because she is notable for having 2 to 4 children, depending on your author, but 2 of whom I'm sure you know, Jack and our audience. They were both kings of Crete and sons of Zeus. Europa is the father to both of them. One of them is King Minos, best known for his wife's affair with a bull. Honestly, kind of poetic when you suddenly realize that his father was a bull.
Yeah.
And the wise king Rhadamanthus, known for his very fair hair, who also sometimes rules the Blessed Isles with Kronos. So then that
I
begs the
remember them.
question, who the hell was Rick trying to write about here? And I want to reiterate, I love Rick Riordan, okay? Like, I love this man. He writes great books that were pivotal in my childhood and influential on the person I am today. But this is fucking crazy, okay? I am okay with Rick taking creative liberties to make things fit the narrative or changing the world's lore to fit what he needs as he plays with the mythology. But this is just straight up wrong and like easily caught with a quick Google search. It's fine. Mistakes happen. So, look,
You made it sound specifically not fine.
it's not fine, okay? So, this book has been published and there are 3 editions. There
Mhm.
is the paperback and the hard copy, and those both use the first edition of the text. But then the copy I'm reading is the new paperback edition, published May of 2022. It's a long time after. That's
It is.
16 years later.
Yeah.
And they're still using the first edition text and they haven't fucking fixed it yet.
Because they don't wanna rewrite history, Connor.
All I'm saying is if Disney Hyperion needs somebody to verify their mythology for their future various titles, what can I say? I'm your guy. Onto the myth.
Got that out of your system, man?
I needed to
Done
get
yelling
through
at
that
Rick?
part first. That was important to me. Maybe
Done
just me.
bullying Rick for his ignorance?
Yes. I'm sorry, dog. You write your whole premise of your books is mythology. If I can figure it out in one search on Wikipedia, you can fix it.
Yeah, but
Mm,
consider this. He didn't wanna do that.
clearly. So that is the truth. He didn't.
No.
But it's okay. It's okay, Jack. We've got through the preamble. We've gotten through all the yelling.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about the myth that they were trying to reference. And here is where I will give credit where it's due, because part of I think what really frustrates me here is truly Rick was so right outside of just a few proper nouns.
Mm.
This myth is actually about a different brother and sister, Phrixus and Hell. And The time, at least one of them escaped death on a flying sheep. The myth first appears in surviving literature around the year 700 BC. Unfortunately, that quote unquote surviving literature is barely surviving. We have a few fragments of Hesiod's catalogs of women, including brief snippets of this story. But they established that this story does go back quite a long time. Unfortunately, due to that fragmented nature in Hesiod's catalog of women, we don't get a ton of detail and it's not very interesting to read. But I will put it out there that the detail we do get is in line with the other literary sources that recount this myth, ranging the 1,000 year span between the 5th century BC all the way to the 5th century AD. There are a few notable details that do change between the versions, and I'll point them out along the way, but as I said, it's actually pretty straightforward, so let's get into it. Now, I could start with the origins of the golden ram from which the fleece comes. But I have other episodes of this show to make, so we'll save that for later, because on its own, it's its own fucking weird-ass myth. Instead, we are going to start with the births of Phrixus and Hel, who are notably not children of Zeus, but instead, they are children of a king named Athamas. Pseudo-Apollodorus tells us in his book, the Bibliotheca, of the sons of Aeolus, Athamas ruled over Boeotia and begat a son Phrixus and a daughter Hel by Nephele. Nephele, by the way, is a minor goddess of clouds created by Zeus, making her a daughter of Zeus. As Percy Jackson makes very clear, immortals cannot stay forever with mortals. So Athamas was remarried or perhaps married a first time, one of those details where it's not exactly clear. But the important thing is he gets married to a woman named Enon. Pseudo-Apollodorus continues, somewhat vaguely, Enon plotted against the children of Nephele. Thankfully, other versions are much more clear about Enon's intentions. Pseudo-Hyginus from around the same time tells us, Enon, daughter of Cadmus and Harmonia, notice Cadmus, whatever, wishing to kill Phrixus and Hel, Nephele's children, formed a plan with the women of the entire tribe and conspired to parch the seed grain to make it unfertile, so that when the sterility and scarcity of grain resulted, the whole state should perish, some by starvation, others by sickness. With regard to this situation, Athamas sent a servant to Delphi, but Enon instructed him to bring back a false reply that the pestilence would end if he sacrificed Phrixus to Zeus. So a couple of things. If you caught, she did try and starve an entire country to kill her stepchildren. Yep, that is what happened. And on that note of starvation, that is a well-attested detail across every version of the myth that is Enon's plan. Her intent was to manufacture a famine by, quote, parching the seed grain, which other versions make more clear. What she did was roast the seeds, drying them out, killing them, and rendering them unable to germinate and grow. She did that for the entire nation's food supply so that she could kill her stepkids.
Wow.
And so that brings us to the part where she pays off the servant of Athamas, who comes back from Delphi, and he goes, all right, king, so here's the thing. You gotta kill your kids and sacrifice them to Zeus. Sorry, it's the only way. And this is where we get to some of the first differences that really matter among the versions, but even still, they're relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. In the versions of Ovid and Pseudo-Apollodorus, King Athamas was forced by the starving people to send the children to the altar for sacrifice before Nephele swoops in to save her children with the golden ram. In Pseudo-Hyginus' version of events, the king is given a little bit more credit, and he is completely unwilling to send his children to sacrifice. But Phrixus nobly approaches the altar saying, I'm not going to let the entire country starve on my behalf. And he goes up to sacrifice himself in the name of greater good. Before, and I quote, the servant, out of pity for the youth, revealed Enon's plans to Athamas. The king, thus informed of the crime, gave over his wife Enon and her son Melicertes to be put to death. But Father Liber cast mist around her and saved Enon, his nurse. Later, Athamas was driven mad by Zeus, slew his son Lyrcus, but Enon, with Melicertes, her son, threw herself into the sea. Did I need to include all the stuff at the end? No, but it's a Greek story, so I needed you to know that no one lives happily ever after.
Yeah, yeah, that's tough.
Since it is the slightly more common version, I will also give you the version of events from Pseudo Apollodorus, which reads Nephele caught Phrixus and her daughter up and gave them a ram with a golden fleece, which he had received from Hermes. And borne through the sky by the ram, they crossed land and sea. But when they were over the sea which lies betwixt Sigium and the Chersonese, Hell slipped into the deep and was drowned, and the sea was called Hellespont after her. But Phrixus came to the Colchians, whose king was Aeetes, son of the sun and Perseus, and brother of Circe and Pasiphae, whom Minos married. He received Phrixus and gave him one of his daughters, Chalciope, and Phrixus sacrificed the ram with the golden fleece to Zeus Phixius. And the fleece he gave to Aeetes, who nailed it to an oak in the grove of Ares. Now, what happens after he nails it to the oak in the grove of Ares? I am, in fact, going to leave that for us to figure out, probably whenever we talk about how that crazy golden ram was born.
What the hell?
But that is the full story of Phrixus and Hell escaping sacrifice on a golden ram. And credit where credit is due, I suppose it's not that different than a woman who has a place named after her and is abducted by a different livestock animal. Just happens to be a bull instead of a ram, and all of Europe instead of Hellespont, which is a real place, by the way. It's no longer called that, but you can actually go and visit it. And that's all I have for today.
Whew.
Talk about a doozy. This was a big one.
I know, Connor. We've been going for so long.
It's okay.
But what a chapter to come back to, and what myths to come back to as well. Maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but after dealing with some less than fun chapters and that fuck ass movie, coming back to this book and being genuinely happy with what I was reading and being able to just gush about it over the course of like 2.5 hours, man, I'm so good. I'm happy to be back. I'm
This was a
stumbling over my words
solid
now.
return to form. I couldn't agree
Genuinely.
more.
I am
I
I am once again back to I wish that we were doing more. I just wanna read more, but I don't wanna spoil it for myself. But,
I
like, this
know.
is we're back to it being a page turner. This is great.
Oh, and I think we're coming up on some more interesting stuff as we get to do Princess Andromeda stuff. Ooh, baby. We're
Mm,
going into the bad guy headquarters in chapter 8? This
I
can't be good.
I didn't know that's what it was.
Oh,
Oh,
spoilers.
fuck. I guess so. Well, for sake of not having any more spoiled, I think we gotta leave it here, man.
I think so. I think so. So, with that, thank you all yet again for joining us, and we will see you next time as we board the Princess Andromeda.
See ya.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to support our content, please be sure to leave a review, share with your friends, and follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms. Until next time, this has been Notes from the Oracle. That really was a great chapter to come back to.
Oh
man.
my
That was so
God.
much fun.
That was fucking awesome. And I know we have been recording for literally 3 hours at this point. This is when I'm energized the entire
Yes.
time. Um,
I was gonna do more myths for this chapter, but I was like, honestly, I've got 3 that I'm really excited about, and I know
mhm.
we're gonna talk each other's ears off about this chapter. So I
Yeah,
restrained myself.
I know it's when we did our pre-recording kind of like, you know, getting our bearings. We're calibrating, "Oh,
Mhm.
what did you think generally? What are anything I should take note of?" Usually, if there's a longer chapter or a chapter where there's it's like, we don't really have thoughts on it," we'll say, "Hey, this is a long chapter, but I don't really have anything substantive to say, so we'll just try to keep it moving at a clip. Or kind of a an alternative to that, "Hey, I really don't have anything of note for the majority of this. I think it's just gonna be a bit of a recap." And
Mhm.
usually we're on the same page about that. I noted neither of us said anything about this being a very long chapter and how we should keep it moving prior to getting into the chapter. And neither of us said, "Yeah, don't really have a lot of thoughts," which led me to believe that this was going to be a doozy, just kind of
Yeah.
silently implied.
It occurred to me, like, right at like, truly, I was like, "Chapter 7. We didn't talk about how long this is gonna take.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no." Like,
The
it was that
closest we
moment of,
got.
I feel like we've forgotten a step in our preamble. Oh,
Yeah, oh, it wasn't forgotten on my end. I thought it was just implied of like buckle up. The
gotcha.
closest we got was saying, "Hey, it's a bit of a longer chapter. How many myths we got?" And you were like, "Oh, I got 2 kinda small ones and 1 kinda, larger one." But, because there's a lot here, I wanted to keep it simple. Which again, usually would transition into, "Yeah, well, there's a lot, so we'll really try to stay on the ball." Nope.
I think you and I were truly like, you hit the nail on the head when you were like, "This was such a fun chapter to return to recording for,"
Yes.
that, like, I was definitely like, "Man, if we came back and did chapter 6, we would have preambled for so long being like, 'Do we have to do this
Yeah.
chapter?' But we just did that fuck-ass movie." And
Yep.
I know I keep calling it that fuck-ass movie because if you guys don't know, watch the episode. It's a fuck-ass movie.
Yeah,
And
it's not
so
great.
I was just like, "Oh, man. I'm excited to dig into this one." It's finally got Annabeth and Percy being happy again, and it I mentioned earlier, I watched the first 2 episodes of the show. I did like them. I think it gets to where it needs to go in an interesting way, but it makes some creative choices about Annabeth and Percy's relationship specifically that I fucking did not like, and it's for a lot of the same reasons that I didn't like chapter 6.
Mm,
And man, it was just so nice to get back to chapter 7 where, like, we're on the same page. They are so in sync all chapter long that it makes me feel so good. It is so
yeah.
fucking great, and I really wanted to dig into it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's because again, I mean, I know I said it, but, like, in real life, we have been kind of stuttering a bit more when it comes to being able to record, mainly because we've gone back and forth where either I have been not able to record because of school stuff or work stuff,
Yeah.
and then I'm available, and then you're not able because of work stuff
Just
or
being
life
fucking
stuff or
swamped at work,
right.
yeah.
Any number of things happening. So it has been genuinely it's probably been, what, a month since we last recorded a chapter? So it's been really spread out, which means in real life, we have been basking in Percy Jackson dog shit for like
For
2.5 months.
so long,
Yeah.
so long. Oh my god. Yeah, man. I am like, truly, this was such a return to form. I was so thrilled. I was so thrilled for it. Before we do our end of book chapter rankings, I'm gonna have to go back and reread this one to make sure that I wasn't just loving it because of its juxtaposition. I don't think I was. I really do think it's a great chapter, but
Mhm.
I'm just gonna need to, like, go in and make sure that my with tempered, with a level head, that it still lives up,
Yes.
and it's still
Yeah.
solid
Yep, and
because
that's very fair. Yeah, with the frame of reference of we've been in a very negative headspace with the media that we've consumed for Percy Jackson, again, for the last, 2 months or so. I totally understand that. I do feel confident you will reread this and be like, "Damn, this was a really fucking good chapter."
I agree, man. I might just want an excuse to reread the chapter.
That's incredibly fair. I mean, the Hermes stuff alone. I
Truly, that might be like, of the 2 halves, I think that's definitely my favorite of the 2 halves. That might be the best 10 pages of the book so far.
I would say that that is the best 10 pages of the book so far. Not even a might. It just straight up is.
Yeah. Hey, man, I the thing is I'm thinking, like, the Grey Sisters, that was great. The Lyshyrgonians, that was great. I think you're right. I think this tops both of those. Like, this was a really, really fun one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think before we leave off, I will just remind all of you at home, we work so hard on these, and I do have a day job where I write software, and turns out sometimes that takes a lot of time and effort, and the last thing I wanna do is sit back down at my computer and edit an episode. So, there are stints of time where there's space between, but I promise we are still out here doing it for you because, man, I love recording episodes like this. And
Yeah.
truly, I would rather be doing this than writing software, but I gotta
Oh,
pay the bills
yes.
somehow.
That is very
So
true, and when I bring up that, like, a peek behind the curtain, "Hey, guys, just a heads up, it's been a little bit," I'm doing that because, 1, if it feels like we're a little bit rusty, I don't think it does, but if people are like, "Ah, something feels a little different," that might be why. We're getting back in the swing of things. But 2, I have definitely forgotten things, and because it's only been 2 weeks for you guys, we have a solid backlog. I'm not worried about us running out of episodes to put out, but it has been more than 2 weeks for some of since we've had some of these conversations. So,
yeah, I would love to release episodes more frequently, but truly this cadence works for us because I got life, and life is a lot of stuff.
yeah. Yeah, Connor does all the heavy lifting. I have genuinely the way that this show was sold, I got into grad school. I barely started grad school, and then Connor said, "Hey, man, you wanna do a podcast?" I said, "Absolutely fucking not. That sounds horrible, actually. I do not have time for that." And he's like, "No, no, no, no. It'll be great. All you gotta do is read this children's book and tell me what you think." And I'm like, "Okay, sure, fuck it. That's all I gotta do?" And so far, Connor, you've remained true to your word. That is all I've had to do.
I've been sticking to it. No, truly, that was always my thing is like, this has been my passion project, and I thought you were the right person to come on and share this with me, but I did not wanna put more work on your plate because, guys, I complain about how I have a full-time job and do this. Jack has a full-time job and is doing a master's program. You thought
Yeah.
I was busy. He's busy and tired and sad.